Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Planning Committee meeting. My name is Councillor David Connor, and I'm the Chairman of the Planning Committee here at Fenland. Welcome to also those members of the press and the public who are joining us via the live stream. Before we begin, please may I take this opportunity to remind everyone to turn their mobiles and computers to silent and ensure that when using the microphones, the red light is on and then turned off when you finish speaking. Now I'd like to go to agenda item number 1, and I'd like to ask member services, it's Joe in this instance, if we have any apologies for absence. So over to you, Joe. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Happy New Year. This afternoon we have apologies from Councillors Gershner and Imafidon. Present today are Councillor Murphy, who's substituting for Councillor Imafidon. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy, for doing that. Agenda item number 2 is to confirm and sign the minutes of the meeting of the 19th of November and the 10th of December 2025. Have I got a proposer for the minutes? Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Benny. That's for the 19th of November. Can I have a show of hands for the record, please? That's unanimous, thank you. Now also for the 10th of December. Anybody want to put hands up? Councillor French is... And then I'll take Councillor Purser to second it. Can I have a show of hands to say of that one as well? That's all agreed. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Purser seconded anyway, so thank you for that. Now we'll go to agenda item number 3, which is urgent items. There are none. However, agenda item number 12 has been withdrawn. Agenda item number 4 is declarations of interest. Member services will now go to each councillor in turn, and can you please state if you've anything to declare in relation to any agenda item this afternoon. Thank you. Over to you again, Joe. Thank you.
Councillor Benny.
Thank you, Joe. I'm a member of Chatteris Town Council, but I don't take any part of the planning, voting, discussions. I leave the room when anything's discussed on that. I do know Matthew Hall from Morton Hall. He's done work for me quite recently and historically, but I'll view them, all the applications, with an open mind. And on item 9, the applicant is Neil Bowers, and I know Neil because when I was portfolio holder, the port was my portfolio, and we were in discussions, and I met Neil several times over that. So just to declare, I do know him, but since I've not been portfolio holder, I have no contact with him, and I'll approach this in an open mind as well.
Thank you. Councillor Connor.
Yes, thank you, Joe. I've been lobbied on application number 8. It's by email. Obviously, I've read it, but obviously I didn't respond to it. As before in my declarations, I know Neil Bowers. He's the applicant, as I was in the same business as him, as he is now. I've been sort of retired 11 years, and I've had no business dealings with him before I retired and since, and I don't socialise with him whatsoever. But Councillor Marks and I went to see Mr. Bowles at his offices in Floods Ferry on council business. This was authorised by our leader, Councillor Bowden. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. French.
Member of Marchtown Council, but don't take part in any applications.
Thank you. Councillor Marks.
Thank you, Joe. I'm a member of Mainey Parish Council, and also I attend Chatteris Town Council as FDC councillor. However, I leave the room or am not take no part in voting regarding any planning. On item number 5, I will be stepping away from this as I've had previous business dealings with the applicant. On item number 9, as the chair has already said, I've met Mr. Bowers once on FDC business. On item number 11, sorry, and I've just got to bring that one back up. Sorry about this. Station Road mainly. Yeah, I will be stepping away from it as the applicant is Mr. Richard Hurston, who previously was my doctor. So I'll be stepping away from that. On item number 13, I have been lobbied via a WhatsApp group, which I was a member of and dealt with for both the developer and also the residents of Fallow Drove. This is a different application by a different person, so I believe I can still take part. However, because I was lobbied regarding this and it was quite pointed, I have reported this back to both Stephen, our legal representative, and also Carol Pilson as well, monitoring officer, on that one. But I believe I still remain open-minded and can take part, and I'm also a member of various drainage boards.
Thank you. Councillor Purser.
Yes, thank you, Joe. I'm a member of March Town Council. I don't take part in any planning applications whatsoever. Also, Mr. Matt Hall has actually done work for me before, but we don't socialise at all, so I'm completely open-minded on that. And I believe with item 8, I'm pulling back on that because I wasn't present at the original hearing on that.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm Chappers Town Council, but I take no part in anything they do with planning. And also I know Matthew Hall, but I have no business with dealings with him whatsoever.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, members. We'll now go to the main part of the meeting. Members should only make a proposal on a planning application when invited to do so. However, I will initially be asking if anybody is going to propose the officer's recommendation. Clearly, if no proposal is forthcoming or that proposal fails, I'll be then looking for an alternative proposal. Members are to be reminded that any such proposal should be accompanied by the planning policy reasons for go against the officer's recommendation. So without further ado, I'll now hand over to Hayley Parker-Haynes. She is the Senior Development Officer here at Fenland to present application F/YR25/0586F, agenda item number 5. So Hayley, when you're ready, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This application seeks planning permission for the construction of 15 dwellings with associated infrastructure. This is the location plan and aerial imagery. The site measures approximately 2.39 hectares and is currently undeveloped land laid to grass. Access is to be provided from the recently approved developments to the west, and with the exception of the adjoining construction site, the boundaries are currently open, with ditches on the eastern and southern sides. This is the proposed site plan, with the developable area focused to the west on land within flood zone 1, whilst the eastern portion within flood zones 2 and 3 remains undeveloped and allocated as public open space. These are the elevations. The proposal comprises a mix of 3 and 4 bedroom homes across 4 different house types. This scheme follows the refusal of an earlier proposal for 18 dwellings. Key amendments include a reduction in the quantum of development proposed, the reorientation of dwellings, the repositioning of the internal road, and reallocating all built form into flood zone 1. These changes address previously raised concerns relating to flood risk layout and biodiversity net gain. These are the visuals from the previously refused scheme and some site photographs. In summary, the proposal seeks permission for 15 dwellings across 4 different house types. The scheme is supported by a viability statement which has independently been reviewed and concludes the development cannot viably support affordable housing or financial contributions. The proposal is a revision of a previously refused scheme which, due to key amendments including the reduction in quantum of development, relocation of built form within flood zone 1, and the provision of 10% biodiversity net gain, is considered that these reasons for refusal have been overcome. Overall, the proposal would deliver modest benefits through additional housing in a sustainable market town location. The design quality, amenity provision and access arrangements are acceptable, and it is considered the previous reasons for refusal have been addressed. The benefits are considered to outweigh any identified harm, and the application is accordingly recommended for approval, subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one speaker on this application. First, I'd like to invite Shana Penny. She's the agent to make her presentation to the committee. You've got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Good afternoon and Happy New Year. I'm pleased to appear before you today in support of the officer recommendation for approval of this full planning application for 15 dwellings. Members will recall that a previous scheme was presented to committee last year, which proposed 18 dwellings alongside balancing ponds and areas of public open space. That application was refused for 2 reasons only, which were a failure to satisfy the sequential test in terms of flood risk and the absence of the required biodiversity net gain information. Importantly, the principle of development, the overall design approach, and matters relating to surface water drainage were all found to be acceptable. We have carefully considered the reasons for refusal and are pleased to present a revised scheme that clearly addresses and resolves those concerns. The development is now located entirely within Flood Zone 1, removing the requirement for a sequential test and ensuring full compliance with both local and national flood risk policies. In this respect, both the Lead Local Flood Authority and the Environment Agency have raised no objections, and it is therefore clear that flood risk matters have satisfactorily been addressed. In addition, the application is now supported by a preliminary ecological appraisal, there we go, and a biodiversity net gain report and metric. These have been reviewed and accepted by the Council's ecologist, with appropriate conditions recommended. As such, the previous reason for refusal relating to biodiversity has also been fully overcome. As set out in the committee report, all outstanding issues arising from the earlier refusal have now been resolved, and the application is capable of being supported. I would also highlight that the proposal will deliver much needed housing within a primary market town with excellent sustainable transport links and with the prospect of delivery imminently. For these reasons, I respectfully invite members to support the officer recommendation and grant planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I've listened to what you've said about the overcome, but my concern is the fact of the lack of Section 106, no affordable housing. The question I'm asking you, the schools, doctors, etc., who's actually going to contribute? You're going to have roughly 35 residents plus, I don't know how many kids, might be another 30. The doctors, dentists, schools, who's going to pay for this? And why should local authorities have to pick up when your applicant will be making money? Why should we have to do it?
I completely hear what you're saying. The difficulty that we have is that it's a very large piece of land, and because of flood risk constraints, only a third of it is developable. So it's actually running at, it's near enough unviable as it is anyway. And I do completely understand what you're saying. You know, with my planner hat on, it's not for councils to pick that up. But I'm in a position where I have to say to you, there's no money in the pot for that, and it is regrettable. But here I am.
Okay. Well, what can one say? I agree entirely with Councillor French. It's absolutely, no words to say. 15 houses in Market Town, and then there is just no affordable houses provision at all, and no 106 money to any improvements at all. It just cannot be right. It really can't. But it is what it is, I suppose. But there we go. Anybody else at all? No? Thank you very much. So, members, questions, clarifications to officers? Can't see anybody. You've got one? Okay, Councillor French.
Thank you. This site obviously has already built out X amount of dwellings. There was a management plan put in there, and in the agenda it's paragraph 10.34 about a management plan. I hope this time, as you're well aware, you and I were down there repeatedly with the mud on the road, and I'm talking about not once or twice, repeatedly down there. So if this is approved, I want a strong management plan in there, because it was ridiculous what the residents in Berryfield had to suffer.
Okay. I mean, we're talking about questions to officers, so I'll just elaborate on that, if I may. Councillor French has made a very valid point there. We did go down there several times, met with several residents down there, and there was parking on the path, mud on the path. The road was in an awful state, if you remember, Councillor French, which obviously you do. So I do see in the conditions, if this is passed, I do see that there is a wheel wash facility there, but I just think we should probably beef that up a bit, because obviously we've got to take residents' views, their concerns into consideration. Matthew?
I'm listening.
So I just do feel, and I'm sure I shall get some backing from Councillor Mitch, that we do need a sweeper there on occasions. Probably not all the time on these 15 houses, but I do think we need a sweeper there just for a backup. That's my personal opinion. I'm getting a nod from Councillor French there. So your comments on that, please.
Through you, Chairman. I think, the condition we're imposing is our standard condition. I understand, there may well have been issues on a previous development, and that may well have caused problems, but that isn't a reason to look to go beyond that as part of this. Obviously, the construction management statement and the plan would require that earth, mud, whatever you want to say, detritus isn't on the road. If it is, obviously we will reach out to them and have that clean. I'm not convinced that imposing a condition requiring a sweeper available would be proportionate for a 15 unit. And I said it's not what we normally request, so going above and beyond wouldn't, above that would need to explain some reason specific for this planning application rather than harm that's happened previously. That'd be my advice, members.
Yeah, well, I think I'd like to come back on that, and obviously Councillor French will probably come back after me. Yeah, well, we had this exact condition built into the last one, and although I'm primarily, obviously, in support of this application, we had the same conditions put on the last ones, but it wasn't adhered to. I'm sure, I'm fairly certain if residents did complain to the council, there wasn't too much forthcoming over it. I don't think that's why we were brought into it, Councillor French, and until we went down there, it wasn't great at all. We went down and saw mud on the road, didn't we? And it wasn't that the condition wasn't adhered to. So I'm just a little bit concerned, and I need some comfort that if we only agree to these conditions, being a wheel wash facility, it will be monitored and it will be acted upon if indeed there is a problem.
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, what you've said there is that the condition wasn't adhered to, so that's a separate matter to what we request in this condition, because I'm not saying they will or won't adhere to it, but to say that they didn't adhere to the condition, so we need to provide a strong condition here, is a bit paradoxical, because if the harm was from not complying to a condition, why would making a more robust condition mean that they would comply with it? And I'm not saying they will or won't, but you've got to think that the last bullet point still does deal with the control of emissions of dust and dirt during construction. So it is all there to be dealt with. If it does happen, there is an enforcement breach, but whether or not they comply with the condition is a separate matter to what the wording of the actual condition is. And it feels that the frustration with the last application appears to be more to do with compliance rather than the actual condition, if that makes sense. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, I do agree. I do have sympathy with what you're saying, but there was vehicles parked on the side of the road, meaning lorries delivering, and I did see that for myself going onto the path as well. So construction traffic I'm talking about, and it did open our eyes. So we have seen quite a bit in our time on planning. We've been on it a long time now, and I would like some comfort that if we have a sweeper there once a week or something like that, I wouldn't be too I'd be happy with that really, but I just do think we've got to look at the residents' concerns and do whatever we can to help them. Sorry.
Dear Chairman, we've spoken about sweepers before, and the idea that you'd have to have it there once a week per se during construction, I wouldn't suggest necessarily meets the test, because having it there once a week is quite arbitrary. It may be that they could be painting inside, for example, and there wouldn't be any.
No.
So the point is about protecting dirt on the road, and that condition does do that. And if they do then breach that, there's an enforcement issue. If a sweeper was once a week, for example, and then 5 minutes after that sweeper's gone, mud appears on the road, this condition would still resolve that, because there is an issue around dirt. You need to be able to demonstrate harm, and but the harm appears to have been from not complying with the condition, not because the condition wasn't robust enough originally. There's a difference, and making the condition more onerous doesn't mean that they'll comply with it more likely. There's a difference, and obviously it's in members' gift to do what they want, but I'm really not convinced that it's gonna add much to the protection of highway safety and dirt on the road, etc. Thank you, Chairman.
Well, I'll let you see what anybody else says then. Sorry about that. Councillor Murphy?
Yes, I'm going back some time now. When we had we had to have a sweeper eventually at Whittlesea, as you know, while it's being built this side of Coates at Whittlesea. And we didn't have a sweeper for a start there, and it got shocking. It really did. It got shocking with the people that were actually doing all the building onto the roads. It was coming out of there. They were coming out of there when it was raining and dirty, and it cost us a fortune for a start. Eventually, we did get it sorted out, and they paid for it eventually, but it took a long, long time to do it, and we had to put up the bill for a start to clear it up. And so I don't think you can do it flippantly. It is a thing that happens all the while, and when it starts to happen, they just carry on with it. They don't bother to clear it up themselves until something happens, until you said something.
Okay, right. Anybody else got any more questions to officers? No. Thank you very much. So I'd now like to invite members to debate the item in respect of the material considerations relevant to the application. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. Thank you. Councillor French.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I've listened to what Matthew has said. We've heard this type of stuff before. We're not requesting that a sweeper sitting there all day, every day. I had to contact Matthew, I believe it was sometime in December. We've got the same problem down the avenue. The roads were absolutely appalling. We've got the same problem in Upwell Road. And when there's mud in the road and it starts to rain, it's torrentious. And I don't see why residents who live in Berriesfield and Barnet Gardens should have to put up with any more of this ridiculous mess that is happening, because they're driving through, they're walking through this mud as well, then it goes into their houses. So I can see there's no reason to refuse the application, but we have to watch this carefully, and environmental need to keep an eye on it as well, and it has to be enforced, not weeks later. When there is a report, it has to be dealt with immediately.
Well, good luck with that one. Anyway, so anybody else want to? We're still in debate, obviously. That was debate. Anybody else want to add to it? No. Looking round. No. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. So that ends that debate. Officers, have you got anything to say?
No.
Nothing. That's very good. Very good then. So, right. So, basically, do I have a proposer to go with officers to recommend approval on this application? So, It's up for approval. Have I got a proposer to go with officer recommendation?
I don't think we've got any choice because it does comply with the excuse me the recent refusal, but it's reluctantly that I do put my hand up to support this. But I am really concerned about the state of these roads again, and the lack of affordable houses and the lack of Section 106s. I really think we're getting our legs pulled here.
Okay, I do perhaps think you're right, Councillor French. So, right, so we've got a proposal to go with officer recommendation to approve this application. Have we got a seconder? Councillor Purser, yes, you're a.
Yes,
so
and
you'll second that, Councillor
could I
Purser.
also echo completely the words that Councillor French came out. Councillor French said, I totally agree with everything you said on that. Totally agree.
So we've got a proposal to go with officer recommendation to approve this by Councillor French's proposing, Councillor Purser's seconding it. Could I have a show of hands on that, please?
It's a unanimous decision, Chairman.
Thank you. That application has been approved. Just for the record, I've got a really, really urgent phone call to make on now. Really, I can't really get out of this one. This is really urgent. Can we just take a 5-minute recess while I sort it out, or do you want to take charge of this one, Councillor?
We'll have a cup of tea.
Okay, thank you, members. Thank you, members of the public, for allowing me to do that. Thank you. Right, so I'll now hand over to Hayley Parker Haynes again to present application F/YR25/0750/F, agenda item number 6. So again, Hayley, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This application seeks planning permission for the siting of a residential caravan and the associated change of use of land. This is the location plan and aerial view. The application site sits approximately 170 metres north of the junction with Honeyston Road. The site sits within an isolated cluster comprising 2 existing dwellings and various agricultural and commercial uses, surrounded predominantly by open countryside, and lies outside the established built-up area of Chatteris. These are the existing and proposed site plans, clearly showing the area, the subject, the change of use and siting of the caravan. A past permission for an annex in 2021 was granted on a personal need ground. This consent has lapsed and carries limited weight. A more recent proposal for similar development in 2025 was recently refused. These are the previously approved and previously refused site plans. The previously approved scheme sought to utilise the existing building on site rather than a new building or structure. The previously refused scheme proposed the construction of an annex and involved a larger plot of land for the change of use. These are the proposed plans and some site photographs. To summarise, the proposed change of use and siting of a caravan is considered to introduce a separate residential unit with no functional dependency on the host dwelling. The siting and scale would extend built form into the open countryside to the detriment of the rural area. Furthermore, the application is not supported by a sequential test and fails Lim A of the exceptions test. Overall, the scheme fails to overcome the previous reasons for refusal and is therefore recommended for refusal. Thank you.
Yep, thank you once again, Hayley. We have one speaker on this item, and I'd like to ask Matthew Hall, he's the agent, to make his presentation to the committee. You've got 5 minutes, Mr. Hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. So as the officer said, an application was refused on this site in 2025, but since that time we've reduced the size of the annex significantly and reduced the amount of extended residential curtilage. We're not applying for a separate dwelling. It's an annex in conjunction with the existing dwelling, which can be conditioned that way. A bit of history. At present, the applicant lives on site with her husband and children in a static caravan to the side of the existing property, which you can see you've undertaken a site visit, and they've lived there in this caravan for 14 years. The applicant's parents live in the host property at the front. The static caravan is leaking. It's in a poor condition, so something needs to be done. The applicant's mum is struggling with her mental health, and the applicant living on site that can assist. They do eat together as a family in the host property during the week. At times, the applicant, a bit of background, she runs the Willows Day Nursery in Chatteris, the after school club here at Westwood School, and also the day nursery at Knightsend Road. There's no objections to this application from any of the consultees. There's no objections from the members of the public, and as the officer said, previous planning committee did approve an annex on this site, a permanent built one, which also extended the curtilage more than this. That was approved by this committee about 3 years ago. That was also in flood zone 3. This was not constructed due to, one, the actual cost of doing that, but also given the land that's to the north and the northwest next to this site, it's unknown what that would be, whether it's going to be commercial, industrial, they don't know. So that was put on hold and it's just expired. It was brought up during the previous planning committee 3 years ago on the previous annex that right next door to this site, there's already an annex. Flood zone 3, no justification on the public access, and that was approved under delegated powers. This is for a residential annex, it's not a separate dwelling, and when you look at this, there's a caravan on site now that's been there 14 years that the applicant's family live in. We're taking that, it's in a poor condition, want to remove it, put a new caravan further to the rear of the site, also in flood zone 3, just like the existing. We're going to build it out of the ground. Environment Agency have approved it, so it's much better. It's betterment. It's not a separate dwelling, it's an annex for family members who live on site already and have done for 14 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Members, questions to Mr. Hall, have you got any? No, not at all. Thank you very much. So, members, questions to officers. Right. So now, members, I'd like to invite you to debate the item in respect to the material planning considerations relevant to the application. If you'd like to speak, raise your hand. Councillor Benny, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I remember when this came before Planning Committee a few years ago. We gave permission to the committee granted permission to build an annex. That was going to be a brick built building. That was also up for officer's recommendation for refusal, but the house next door to it had an officer's recommendation to approve for exactly the same thing. So it does make you wonder why we get differences from one house to the next. But anyway, we've approved that, obviously, as we've heard, that's run out. Now, the people here, I don't know them, but I know of them. I know the lady runs the daycare centre. To me, this seems like a very genuine open case. We've got a grotty caravan, we're going to take it off and we're going to put something better there. It's not going to change the family unit. This is for people, and this is where committee should be looking at the human element of this. We've got a family here. We don't want to see a family split up. And truthfully, I don't consider this building in the open countryside. Neither did anybody else when they built the Tesco site, which backs onto it. You've got SS Motor Fuels, which is industrial area. You've got the coach company there. You've got Honeysum Industrial Estate, which is, it all runs round this. And truly, it's not extending the curtilage. We're not taking it out into the open countryside. We're replacing what's there with something better to improve the quality of life for a resident. And truly, I see where the policies maybe don't fit and where it could be considered in the open countryside. I personally don't. It's no more than this house, what this dwelling was, or the one next door that had an approval on. I think this is this really could have gone either way. I know it's not ideal to put a caravan in flood zone 3, but we've already got a caravan and we're building something out of the ground which will make it safer and better. And I truly think this deserves support today, and I will be supporting this application.
Okay, Councillor Marks.
Thank you. Hear exactly what Councillor Benny says. A couple of other things I'd like to add. Quite honestly, families get bigger. As families get bigger, they need more space. They're in quite a cramped caravan now. This is going to give them better living and more living space. We're talking about flood zone 3 and caravans. A couple of months ago, we had one in Wisbeach, or just outside Wisbeach, which was a traveller family who we put in flood zone 3 in caravans. We're told we need to be consistent. I can't see that this is doing anything to the detriment. In fact, I think it will make their lives. They're obviously got elderly parents or parents who are living on site as well. As far as I'm concerned, I'm quite happy that this gets passed today.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Marks. Anybody else at all? No? Right, so obviously we're still in debate. We'd like to carry on with the debate, Councillor Purser.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so I've been thinking about this in debate. Sometimes actually waiting to see what Councillor Benny said about it being a sort of local man who knows the area very well. But it seems to me that it's basically replacing dilapidated caravan, what have you, to make it a much better living accommodation for those people. It's basically almost exchanging like for like, really. So currently see that we can't support it, and I fully support it.
Right, thank you very much, Councillor Purser. I think I can see where this is probably going. Anybody else want to add to the debate before I close it? Councillor Murphy?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing. I really should have, I suppose, asked the officers about it. But did the middle level ever come back again with a response?
You could leave that. I mean, you can answer it now, really. It doesn't really matter. But we could perhaps leave that when we go into questions for officers' clarifications. Perhaps they can perhaps give you some answer to that. So, any more for the debate before we close that? No, thank you very much. The debate's closed. Councillor Murphy, have you got an answer for Councillor Murphy?
Yeah, I noticed that the middle level hadn't given a response back to you at all about the river, flown 3. Have they done it since? You done it or not?
Through you, Chair, no, they haven't. We've still not received
Well,
a response.
actually, I'm all for this going through, but you've got somebody like the middle level that there's no responses whatsoever, and you've got a drain, 20-foot drain, running straight past the property. I mean, they couldn't care less, could they? You know, at the end of the day. So I mean, I couldn't care less either. It's never been flooded as I know, and I've lived in Chatters all my life, and it's never been flooded as I know there. So I'm for it.
Yeah, relevant points, Councillor Murphy. Thank you. Anybody else got any more questions for officers? And Councillor French, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Just a comment on what Councillor Murphy has just said. Middle level or any drainage board are not statutory consultee, and if there is a drainer dike there, it's probably not theirs, and that's probably why they haven't responded.
Yeah. Stephen, our legal executive, is making a comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to remind members that this was subject of a refusal in 2025, fairly recent, similar development. So members need to be reminded of the planning code of conduct in the Constitution, which requires any member who wants to support an application recently refused to identify the significant change in planning circumstances which justifies the approval.
Chair, just for clarity, and I was just checking. Understand is that obviously there's an existing caravan on site. It's within the residential curtilage. That caravan, to our understanding, has been there over 10 years. Irrespective of that, if it was being used as an annex, the site of a caravan within residential curtilage isn't development. It's as long as it's ancillary, so an annex and such uses as that. So when members are saying about removing an existing caravan, you've got to understand that that caravan didn't require permission, is lawful because if it is an annex and it's within the residential curtilage, and they could replace that existing caravan with this caravan without the need for planning permission. So obviously this application is materially different to just replacing the caravan, because obviously it's on a new site, it's expanding the site, where if they wanted to take the existing caravan away and just put a new one down, we wouldn't be here. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Well, thank you for your advice, Stephen. Right. So, any more questions for officers at all before we move forward? No concerns. So, right. So do I have a proposer now to go with officer recommendation to refuse planning permission? So to sum it all up, this has been up for refusal. Anybody support the officers? No, so obviously that's failed. So I'm looking for another proposal, please, Councillor Benny.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'd like to propose that we go against the officer's recommendation on this one and approve this application.
Yep. Also give us some reasons for doing that, please, sir.
I don't consider this to be elsewhere location. Going back in history, the land adjacent to it was Tesco's. That was all fields. That's been built on. You know, things evolve, and this is evolving. This is not changing the footprint. And as we've just heard, didn't need a planning permission to take a caravan off and replace it with another one. So I don't think that elsewhere location applies to this, because we're not building anything new. We're just changing more or less lake for lake on this one. The fact it's flood zone 3, well, caravan 1 was in flood zone 3, caravan 2 is going to be in flood zone 3. So as to the fact we had a refusal on this site earlier, well, this committee didn't refuse it, and it didn't even need planning permission. We've just heard that, so I don't consider that this is harmful. Councillors, we should be looking at this. This is not causing any harm to the rural environment. This is benefiting the family, and that's what we should be doing.
So, yeah, come in there, then I'll take Councillor.
Clarity. Obviously, this isn't like for like, and that's the point. This is why we have a planning application, because it actually does require planning permission. It, you know, change of use of land is the first part of the description. This is materially different to just replacing the caravan on site. So you can't just say it's like for like, because that is factually incorrect to what if they were just replacing the existing one, which wouldn't require permission, and therefore I don't think we can argue that the replacement of the caravan on a residential site that doesn't require planning permission is a material consideration of, well, as in a balance to a development that changes the location, expands the residential character, and in policy terms is elsewhere. Whether or not you feel the character of the area is elsewhere, it is an elsewhere location in policy terms. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, absolutely. Then I'll bring Councillor Marks
Yeah,
in.
I mean, that's okay. I accept what you say, but as a councillor, this is the right decision. This is the right decision to approve this. Okay, we are changing a caravan and we're moving it, but we're moving it within the curtilage of the building. It's not going outside. It's not going out of the land that is owned there. It's all of this is in the ownership of the people that want this. You know, to me, this is making people's lives better at no detriment to anybody else. So I've stated my reasons and I will stand by them.
I'll just,
Come back in, yeah.
Clarity. Do you want to explain just for clarity?
Just for
to make sure
clarity.
things
So
are clear?
Absolutely.
the plan on screen shows the application site. So we're looking at the proposed plan. You will see the words to the bottom of the site. That's the existing caravan, and that's within the existing residential curtilage. The land to which this application relates is the coloured bit for ease on that screen. So it doesn't fall within the existing residential curtilage associated with Bromsgrove House, is separate. Whilst it's within the same ownership, it is a separate piece of land outside of the residential curtilage. Just a few other points that you have made during discussion, which I didn't speak up about at the time, in terms of the neighbouring property and their annex. When that got permission, it was a garage and it was the conversion of an existing building within the established residential curtilage, and the previous approval granted by members pertained to the existing building on site as well, so it was reusing that building. It wasn't a completely new annex on site, it was utilising existing buildings. So it's just a point of clarity. I thought it'd be easier with the site plan up for you to see that it is not within the residential curtilage currently associated with Bromsgrove House. Thank you.
Come back because I've got something to
Yeah,
say on
I
this.
mean, that's fine. I mean, the main point here isn't the building next door, but it did have an approval on it. So in some ways sets the principle of, yes, an annex is acceptable there, but that I didn't mention that in my reasoning. And also, I say it's in the curtilage of this, it's in the ownership of the land of these people. And it's their land, and truthfully, they should be able to do what they want to it. I know it has to go through the planning process, but we have, we'll see where it goes. I've given you my reasons, and I think
Yeah.
So it's up to you, Mr. Chairman, but we need to vote on this one.
Councillor Marks, thank you for waiting.
No, that's fine. I'm happy to second this. I've had a quick look. Look, there are no objectors to this. I think three things. One, this is a temporary structure which is tied to the main property. Obviously, if the family move or whatever, then the likelihood is this will be taken away. Number one, at the end of the day, the other thing is we are actually bettering the facility that's on site. Yeah, okay, we can split hairs and say we're moving it across the site, but actually, who are we affecting? And we've already agreed it's not really an elsewhere location. I'm happy to second this with those points.
I mean, yeah, I absolutely support this. To be fair, I know we're going. I'm just giving my reasons for probably accepting Councillor Benny's recommendation or go against officer recommendation on this one. It's not really hurting. It's betterment. It's going to make the people's lives better. Most definitely. We've heard the caravans leaking. That can't be right in the 21st century anyway, can it? So I just do feel it's not hurting anybody. It's got all the consultees and haven't got a problem with it. And also, it's obviously tied to the property. So if the property gets sold, the condition is that that'll have to be moved as well. And as we've said before many times, we do in this committee room that we absolutely endorse families all living together. We've said that on numerous occasions. One in Wisby St Mary's not too long ago. Several others could spring to mind if I gave it thought. So I'm quite happy with that, really, Councillor Benny. So I'm going to take your proposal and obviously, so, and I'm going to obviously thank you, Councillor Marks, for coming in to have your say. So I'm going to agree with this. So what's your proposal, Councillor Benny, just to sum it all up? Also,
Sorry, just to reiterate what I said earlier, I don't think from what I've heard that there are any identification of the substantial change in planning circumstances that's arisen since last year. And the Constitution does not make any distinction between decisions made by committee or by officers. So I just need to point that out to members and remind them that that is what the Constitution says.
Sorry, the plans. Oh. So the previously refused scheme is on your right, on that site plan, and that included a larger change of use of land. So it includes that strip running along the rear.
Yeah. Not compared to the current
And
application.
then this is the current application.
So they're broadly consistent.
on the right.
Yeah, proposed.
Well, unless I'm reading this wrong, we've gained a whole building. Surely that is a material change. We're now saying that on the top right on the boundary, they're going to do up those outbuildings, but we've gained a whole building somewhere else. So surely that is a material change.
So for clarity, the building shown at the top of the site is an existing building.
Yeah.
And when this application was previously approved, it was to utilise that building as an annex.
Right.
The previously refused scheme included the provision of another building to the south, and then which is shown on that plan. And then this scheme proposes a building in the siting of a caravan in a similar location to the previously refused site construction of an annex.
Right.
So the building that's on site currently is going to be retained, and they're going to put in the caravan, if that helps.
It's materially different, isn't it? It's most definitely from the last application. God. God, definitely.
Depends whether it's material or not.
I think, you know, I'm quite satisfied really. On the reasons I gave 3 or 4 minutes ago, I'm quite happy. That's my view anyway. As chair, I can exercise my view, and I shall no doubt take the flak if anything comes. So I'm quite happy with that. So to sum it all up, I'm happy to go along with that, Stephen. So to sum it all up, I've got a proposal from Councillor Benny, seconded by Councillor Marks, to go against officer recommendation to approve this application. Can have with the delegation, with delegated. As we said, it's got to be to a favour with the officers, and it's got to be to with a condition to with the building. So if they sell it, it's got to come off. So it's got to be aligned to it. In other words, yep, personal position. So I'm happy for that. So I've got as I said. So I need a show of hands on that so we can move on quickly. Lovely. The application's been approved. Again, well, I'll hand over to Hayley Parker Haynes to present application FYR 25/0814. It's a PIP application, application number 7. So Hayley, you're very busy today. Well done, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This application seeks permission in principle for up to 4 dwellings. This is the location plan, an aerial view. The site is agricultural land to the west of Hospital Road and the rear of Arscombe Row. The site was previously refused permission in principle for up to 3 dwellings. These are the indicative site and block plans. Imagery of the site. The proposal relates to the provision of 4 dwellings. This is considered to represent encroachment into the open countryside, introducing built-for multiple access points, the loss of boundary hedgerow, and overall eroding the rural character and edge of settlement transition. Whilst nearby approvals are a material consideration, they are regarded as isolated instances of development and not indicative of a change in the settlement pattern. Furthermore, the proposed development would equate to approximately 9 dwellings per hectare, and whilst this aligns with the rural context, it represents inefficient use of land and conflicts with the environmental and economic objectives of the NPPF and local plan policies. Therefore, it is recommended for refusal. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you once again, Hayley. We have one speaker on this application. Now I'd like to invite Matthew Hall, he's the agent, to make his presentation to the committee. Again, you've got 5 minutes. Thank you. Yeah, start when you're ready, thank you.
Thank you. So in the officer report, it believes that this is an elsewhere location. Since the application was refused, planning approval has been given by this committee for 3 plots directly to the north of this site, which is on the map behind me. Which is a bit of a change in the character of the area. But also, when I looked at this, we did an application that planning approval was given for in 2018 under delegated powers, 380 metres, well off this map, 380 metres to the west, the bungalow, which is much further out of Doddington, same side of the road, on Benwick Road, 380 metres away, and that was given approval. Wasn't a replacement, delegated approval. So all of this site is in flood zone 1. We've had a look at the Cambridgeshire County Council Highway comments. They don't object to this application. We've read them carefully and I've discussed them with the applicant. So if this application is approved, like with the other applications there's a requirement to provide a pass in place. That's in the highways comments. We totally agree that can be provided within the highway verge. And if this application is approved, they would have to do that. That would have to come forward as a technical part of the technical matters application. He's fully aware some improvements need to be done. So since the first application was refused 3 years ago, in my opinion, there's material planning change. One, the actual site area, the red line, has been reduced probably by about a quarter. And it brings it in away from some of those back gardens in Arscombe Row. But also, I know it's indicative, we've also increased the number of dwellings because on the first application that was refused, we were told it was under development. The second reason for refusal in the report is wrong because it says the proposal, as stated on the application form that I submitted, we put it in for 4. On the indicative drawing it says 4, but reason 2 in the refusal says 3. It's not 3, we're putting for 4. And also since this time there's changed directly to the north of this site, further plots have been approved, and this site hasn't been used for agricultural for at least 10 years. Looking at the map on the screen, so you can see this site, I've hatched it in red in relation to the other sites. Obviously there's lots of approvals been given here since about 2020. I don't consider this not part of Doddington. When you look at the map, to the north, there's mega plants, there's numerous planning approvals. Some of those are built out, some of those are sold, some of them are being built. To the east, you've got Doddington Hospital. To the left, you've got massive development, Arscombe Care Home. There's further residential dwellings further past there. And as I said earlier, in 2018, we obtained a delegated approval for a further dwelling, not agriculturally tied, not a replacement dwelling. That was approved under delegated powers. And this site, in our opinion, also abuts residential development. And it's all in flood zone 1, linear development, same as Arscombe Row, same as the plots that were approved to the north. And there's numerous planning approvals here in the last 6 years. The highways improvements, I know it can't be conditioned, I understand that, but they would have to come forward if this application is approved under a technical matters application, because if not, we would attract a highways objection. So they're fully aware there needs to be some highway improvements. And you look at the properties on Ascombe Row, which are very, very nice properties, nice large properties. That's what's being proposed here. So we're trying to match in with the character of the area. And when you look at that map, in our opinion, this isn't an elsewhere location. It's part of Doddington. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Members, questions, clarifications to Mr. Hall, please. If you have any, Councillor French.
Thank you. Mr. Hall, I realise, excuse me, it is a PIP, and you did suggest that the applicant would be prepared to contribute to the upgrade of passing places, etc. One thing that concerns us, and we discussed this at other applications, that is still a 60 mile an hour and it needs to be reduced. Do you think your applicant would be prepared to go forward with a reduction in speed?
Yes, he would do, yes. Yes.
I think, am I right in saying, I'm fairly, I don't know if I'm right, but has a speed reduction been already been applied for, I think, from Mr. Cuttridge, I think that was one of the conditions for his 5 or whatever it was some time ago.
I think he may have applied for it. We're not doing it, so I don't know, but I think he may have done, but I can't be 100% sure.
I think it's been brought to my attention. It's been applied for, so it's been in some year. But I think, as Councillor French and I know, county council is not the fastest in the world. I think it'll be another year before it's implemented. Well, this is a PIP application, and this is only the first step, obviously. And there's several hurdles in which to go to get full planning permission on this site. I think I'm right in saying. So yeah, so it's just an update. So you're probably agreeing what I'm saying then, are you?
Yes.
Yep. Thank you. So any more questions for Mr. Hall? No. Thank you very much. Members, questions, clarifications to officers. I'm looking around. There's no one. No. Thank you very much then. So, members, I'm asking you to debate the item in respect to the material considerations. So we're in debate basically. Who'd like to kick that off? Councillor Marks, thank you.
Thank you. We've been here numerous times before with these applications along this area, around this area. Material changes, well, yeah, we've got sort of like from 3 years ago when this first came in front of us, we've given other applications around it. So I do believe there are changes here. And it's not the greatest road in the world. However, I don't believe you could do 60 mile an hour down there on a good day, to be fair, unless you're on a push bike with a wind behind you. Passing place is community benefit. I think that's a really good thing. And it's good to hear that obviously they are already aware of this. Quite honestly, yeah, okay, land usage, you've got some nice houses at the front there. If it mimics that regarding space and stuff, I can see very little wrong with this, and I'd be happy to support it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Marks. Anybody else want to add to the debate? Councillor Benny, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, I mean, myself and Councillor French did site visits on this on Sunday. We drove down there, and there's bungalows being built down there. There's bungalows that have been built out down there, and they're further out in the open countryside than this is, and they've all been approved. To me, the thing with this is we're going to get some betterment on the road. We've got mega plants down there. There used to be a caravan storage place down there because I used to keep my caravan there. I don't know what he does now, but somebody's running some sort of business there because they shut the caravan to do something else. I don't know quite what he does. But there's buildings all down there. We've got mega plants that's got its cafe approved. That means there'll be more people there. If this improves the safety of the road by putting highway improvements down there, and we can get the speed down, which it looks like that's going to happen. I think that this makes the developments better, and it makes it safer for people using the road.
Yeah, relevant points, Councillor Benny. Anybody else want to add to the debate? No, can't say anything, so I'm going to close the debate. Officers, have you got anything to say on the whole situation? No? Oh, goodness. Right, so we'll move then. Do I have a proposer to go with officers recommended to refuse planning permission for this application? Just to be clear, to refuse it. Doesn't look like anybody agrees with that. So I'm looking for another proposal. So Councillor Marks, thank you. What are you proposing, the reasons for doing so?
Mindful of what Stephen said last time, I believe that we should grant this. I believe there has been material change. There is a number of properties that have been given planning down there in the last 3 years since this was first in front of us. They've gone for 4 on, and so they've got a bit more usage instead of the 3 that they had previously. I think the benefits it gives. Also, we're hearing regarding a passing place, obviously we can't condition that today, and regarding the 60 mile an hour being speed reduction as well. So I feel that we should support this.
So they're fair enough reasons to me, I think. As I said, there is material change down there in the last 3 or 4 years. But anyway, have I got a seconder for that? Councillor French, would you like to second it? Okay, so I'm happy with those reasons, with that, Councillor Marks. So I've got a proposal to go against officer's recommendation to approve this application, proposed by Councillor Marks, seconded by Councillor French, with conditions. You don't want any conditions on it? Oh, not a PIP, of course it is, sorry. My fault, sorry. There's no conditions on that. Right, so hands up on that proposal, please.
It's a unanimous decision, Chair.
So the application has been approved. Thank you very much.
Councillor Purser, are you leaving the table for this item now? Stay there, yeah.
Okay, so that's why I was waiting a little while to see your reaction, Councillor Purser, but thank you very much for that. Now I'll hand it to Hayley Parker Haynes once again to present agenda item number 8, FYR 25055940. Thank you, Hayley, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This outline application seeks planning permission for the construction of 3 dwellings with the matter of access committed. This application was heard by members on the 15th of October, whereby it was determined that the application be deferred for 3 months to allow for the required ecological information to be submitted. Due to survey seasons, this information has not been received within the required timeframe. The application remains the same as it was at the previous committee, but as a refresher, this is the location and aerial plan, the indicative site plan, and some site photographs. Members deferred this application to allow for additional ecological information to be submitted. The application must be assessed on its merits, given the elsewhere location with poor access to services. It is not considered the principle of development is supported. Further, the applicant has failed to fully satisfy the sequential and exceptions test, and insufficient ecological information has been submitted. Therefore, the application is recommended for refusal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hayley, once again, with no speakers on this application. So I'd like to invite members to questions to officers if you've got any. Councillor Marks, thank you.
Just one, how can an ecological one have failed if it's not during that period? Surely it can't have failed, it just hasn't taken place because it wasn't the right timing. So therefore, should we not defer this?
Well, that's obviously their gift, but if you'd like to answer that.
Through you, Chair, thank you. It's in your gift how you proceed with this, but at the moment insufficient ecological information has been submitted, and therefore that does form a reason for refusal.
Okay, so Councillor French, did you want to come in there?
Yeah, just to pick up what Councillor Mark said, I would have thought the time to do this would have been, I don't know, is it through breeding season, March to whatever? Yeah. Is that correct? So I think possibly will be unreasonable to refuse this before it's actually completed.
Well, I'll come in there just to clarify it, because I can remember this as it was yesterday. It was, officers did recommend breeding season until the end of September, from I think March to September, to be truthful. But then we said 3 months, which is incompatible with the breeding season anyway. So with that, they can't do the survey, can they? Because it's not in the prescribed time. So we're no further forward really on this one. So did you want to come in there? Because I can remember it.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to say I was right, but that wouldn't be appropriate. So I won't say anything. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah. Anyway, Councillor Marks.
Chair, I think we've established, quite honestly, we're in a bit of a grey area. I know that the Chief of Planning is sitting there with a smile on his face, with his "told you so" hat on, which is fine. You know, I would suggest that we defer this for another 6 months.
I mean, to cut the long story short, we've learned there's nothing new from the last application. We're in the same place. We can debate it all we want, but shall we just all agree we can do that, can't we? You can.
Mr. Chairman, if we're going to defer this, this will probably be heard under the new planning rules, which means it won't end up back here. Would that be a fair assumption, Mr. Head of Planning?
Through you, Chairman. Honestly, I don't know. There's no legislation, secretary legislation at the moment. It normally takes over, there's a standard practice that minimum of 2 months for secretary legislation to be laid. And also we don't know how the transitional arrangement will work. Will it be a date for applications submitted before a certain date? Will it kick in? Will schemes that already have been heard at committee have to come back? You know, I'm just repeating the things I keep saying. I don't know is the answer. There's no detail on how this will come in, and you know, and the impacts it'll have on live applications, etc. So I don't know is the answer.
Okay,
can I come
you
back in?
can.
Yeah. I mean, because if we're going to defer it, there's two reasons for refusal on here. I mean, if we're going to refer it for an ecological report, and that may never come back to us, that would then be down to officers to decide with flood zone 3. So do we defer it on both of these, or do we look at the flood zone 3 part of it today and only no?
No, I don't think we can. I think the easiest thing is probably. Sorry, Councillor Marks, and I'll come in after that. Sorry didn't see you.
Sorry, as this has now been muted, can we just go back to one of the slides showing that one? So the blue lines around are the ones we've already given permission for. Am I correct in what I'm saying? So we've already given flood zone 3, and I am taking a guess that they will have had to have done an ecology report anyway. Am I correct in what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Do we know when those were actually given? When that permission was given for the ones already passed?
About 2 years ago, in my guess.
Through you, Chair, it was in 2023
Yeah.
that the application was submitted. So any ecological report submitted as part of that would be out of date now. So we can't make reference to them as part of this application. And also, since the determination of that application, our guidance on flood risk has changed as well. So that's why this application is as it was as part of the original report, which should be appended to the current update report for it coming back today. Thank you.
Thank you. But regarding flood risks, I think we sat here not 2 months ago and we suddenly decided that flood risk on 3 was a bit because of the Whiz Beach ones, where when we start building out the ground, we take away the flood risk, as my colleague over there said. And this is so with flood risk, we can mitigate against that today. So it comes down to the ecological report. If we're minded to hear this and to try to hear it through.
Okay, so yeah. So still questions to officers at the moment. We've just gone off the track a bit, haven't we? Any more questions to officers? And we can probably deal with this in debate. And then you can sum it all up in a nutshell after that.
I think there was an inferred question from Councillor Marks. I think Stephen picked it up last time in relation to the habitats regulations, etc. And that as an authority, we can't condition it. That's like it sits slightly side to planning. We have to be comfortable with it. It isn't the same as many other issues, and therefore it's not really we can't just condition that this will hopefully be okay in the future. We have to be convinced, and that's the reason members deferred it. that situation, certainly, I would say, hasn't changed, and therefore I think members, need to either potentially make, if not, I would never encourage this per se, but if members are wishing to not have two issues stand up in the future, it may be in their best interest to refuse it only on ecology grounds rather than deferring it. If you defer it, everything's still available. But if the council find that the only issue with this application is ecology, that would be a material consideration in any future application. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, I think that's the way forward. Councillor Marks.
I'm a little confused. It doesn't take a lot, I know. We have a blue line round a agreed build already. It hasn't taken place yet. We have an ecology report that's out of date, so we're being told. However, they could start building tomorrow. So badgers could have moved into there, but we seem to just ignore that, or whatever wildlife, but we've still got this one next door. We're hanging out for an ecology report. I don't quite follow, the likelihood is nothing has probably changed, or if it has, the guys in the blue can just go and build, whereas we're sitting here holding up a development with a red line waiting for a red line around it. It doesn't quite, I understand what we're saying, but equally, surely some common sense comes into this as well.
Argue the point of common sense.
There is
Thank you, Chair. Through you, and the answer to that is the planning system requires that you consider each application as it comes in. The fact there may have been a previous application next door is a matter of planning history, but it's not. You couldn't today approve this application in the absence of the ecology report, simply because there's a site next door which has an existing permission. As has been said, the ecology report for that site is out of date. So it'd be entirely wrong for members to rely on that to approve this application.
Although it's out of date, the builders can start building tomorrow.
through Chairman, I think the one next door was outlined. So if there hasn't been reserved matters, then obviously there would still be additional information. And there's been more case law recently that is that you can't, even on the same site, you can't rely on the fallback of an outline for a full when it comes to ecology. That was relatively recently judicial through the court. So, I think members are looking at a very muddied way of trying. The reality is we need to have this ecology report to be able to support a scheme as a council. That would be my advice. It's that simple. Without that, we should not be looking to support this scheme. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Benny, then I'll come in then.
Right, just to clear this up in my mind from what Matt said to us today, if we refuse this only on ecology, because obviously if the committee feels that flood zone 3 is acceptable here, we need to discuss that. That wouldn't, the flood zone 3 would not be an objection. That wouldn't be, when the application comes back in another form, only the ecology side of that would be a reason for, or if they come back with an ecology report which is favourable, then that in theory should go through. Would that be what you're saying? I mean, obviously you can't foretell what other things are going to come up in that, but
The Chairman, all I can say as always is the decision of the committee would be a material consideration, termination of future application. He said it's not a case of saying we will automatically support or won't support that, but obviously, as always, it will be an assessment based on, and the planning history is a material consideration of significant weight.
I mean, looking at this, we haven't discussed it, and I don't know which way this would go. If we accept it is a suitable site to build on, and we accept the flood zone 3 is, and bearing in mind it's turbs, and everything you build in turbs is in flood zone 3 because all of turbs is, and we can mitigate against it as well. If we accept that that is acceptable, and we only refused it on the ecology, if it came back with a good ecology report, or I remember we did a traveller's site at Parsons Drove, and we said there's no ecology report. I can't think, it was probably before the ecology laws came in, and the officers told us, well, there isn't anything because they absolutely stripped the site and cleared it all off, and there wasn't anything there. I mean, but you can't do that halfway through an application. But if another application came in and the ecology report was favourable, we can get round that. If this came back and we've turned this down on the flood zone, you can't get around the fact it is in flood zone 3. So, you know, I would be tempted to refuse this on the ecology alone, and then we could have an application come back with the correct paperwork, which then could be approved. But if we defer this with the changes that are coming in the planning, it could be that this just goes straight to officers, and then it's flood zone 3 and it gets refused and it'll never get.
I've got a way forward here. So hopefully we all listen to just what Matt had got to say. Is that the question could be if we only turn this down, if we debate the application in a couple of minutes, and we look at it as ecology, can we make a strong recommendation when the ecology has been completed that it comes back to this committee, irrespective of whatever the new law says?
Chairman, I don't think that's what Councillor Benny was.
Well, he was intimating that way.
I think what Councillor Benny has said is material. As always, with any application, members are not bound to follow the recommendation. They're able to look at the various reasons for refusal and consider whether they think some or all of them have merit. If they agree with some but don't agree with others, members can refuse a scheme only on some of the reasons for refusal. As with any application, no decision means that automatically another application will have the same outcome, or because of material considerations can change, and all those sort of things. But we are where we are, of the history is a material consideration of significant weight. I'm not sure I can say much more than that.
No, so I think we've got. So right, so thank you, officers, for that. So I'm going to open it up for debate now. So who wants to kick off the debate? Councillor Benny, if you just kick the debate off, and we'll enter into it then. Thanks.
I mean, truly, if we hadn't got the other 3 that were sitting next to it, I would probably be more in agreement with the officers on this. But, you know, how does this look to the public when we've granted 3 and we're going to turn the 3 down next door? It does look poor, doesn't it? But that is planning, and that's how it works. Truly, with these other 3 next door, I don't want to see these turned down particularly. I'd like to see these approved. But we can get round the ecology, or another application would get round the ecology, because they could do the ecology report. If we agree this is flood zone 3, this may never ever come to planning committee ever again. And in which case, I think this will just be a flat refusal with flood zone 3 and the ecology. So it seems a cruel thing to do if we want it approved, but I think truly we need to return this down today, but only on the ecology, because we can get around, the applicant can bring the paperwork forward to get around the ecology aspect of it. But when it doesn't have members looking at the flood zone 3 aspect of it, I don't think we'll get around that, and I think it'll never be built.
Okay, Councillor Marks, did you want to put your forward just quickly?
Yeah, Chairman, could I make a comment? Could I caution members about, I understand the rationale about the way forward, but if members feel that the flood zone 3 is not an issue, members should not be relying on the change in the future rules to defer or refuse the application. Members should focus only on the planning issues. So I wouldn't like it minuted that members made a decision based upon the future changes in the scheme of delegation, because that's not a reason for making a planning decision. I just want to make that observation.
No, but I don't think Councillor Benny is. What he's saying is basically there's three we've got extant planning permission on, and just for consistency's sake, the ones next door, it would look consistency sake, it looked pretty odd if you didn't consider having 3 next door on the same site. So I think that's what perhaps Councillor Benny is getting at. Yeah.
Can I just also one thing? What I would say is I do totally agree with what Stephen has said, and I would hope members were not thinking I was saying that, but what I have always said is I would encourage members to refuse things on one reason when we'd have to defer it for a long time rather than deferring it. So that would just be a consistent, because obviously it's problematic when we have to do it. And the only other thing I would say is that if obviously the site is in a flood zone, that's in a flood zone. We can't change that. Obviously, there is not, in our opinion, a level of detail to pass the credential test. As the report says, and as we know, if members consider that the fact that it's in a flood zone isn't problematic, there would still then need to be a consideration in the debate around the exceptions tests and why it's acceptable. And obviously, that would then form part of any minutes for the meeting as well. But just obviously clarifying that, because obviously, just for clarity with the word Councillor said about us accepting if it is or isn't in a flood zone, well, that's a fact. We then just need to move on to the actual consideration, which is the exceptions test, and that's dealt with in paragraphs 10.42 onwards for members, just to, if they need to quickly refresh themselves with it. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, Councillor Benny.
I mean, if we're going to look at flood zone 3, my computer's gone off. I mean, if we're going to look at it, anything in Turves that is built is going to be built in flood zone 3, because all of Turves is in flood zone 3. And if you say you won't do any development, it is not good for a village to not have development, because if it doesn't, they die. And all the residents suffer from that. So again, I see the benefits of passing this in flood zone 3, because if not, Turves will die. And we have had development throughout Turves. I mean, where the old pub was, there's been loads of development there. That's all in flood zone 3. And you know, I really view the sequential test as a block to development. And I know it's policy, but it is, because we've had it where we've had 2 applicants both been put in more or less at the same time, and the first one that comes to committee is approved, and the second one can't be because the first one has been approved. And it doesn't look at land usage. That's then policy that's tying stuff up and stopping things from being developed. And we are where we are with it. But I think that with this being in Turves, flood zone 3, wherever you build, it's going to be, and you can't stop development in villages because it doesn't do them any good. I'm going to question to officers what would happen if we approved it without the ecology report.
Well, it would be a legally flawed decision, because you're taking into account, or you're not taking into account, full ecological information, and it's be a legally flawed decision. No question in my mind about that.
Sweet Chairman, what I would suggest is that, it probably more legally flawed than, it's as legally flawed almost as you can get when the legislation says do not do this, it sits aside planning. That legislation around the considerations is just about ecology, full stop. It's any decisions council make and stuff. So I think, it's dangerous.
Okay. Did you want to come back, Councillor Benny? No? Or
No. I think I've said enough. I'd just be very interested to see what other members think.
right. Okay, I'll bring you in, then I'll come in myself then, Councillor Marks. Thank you.
We have an application in front of us. We have a site next door. We've been over that. We've been told by the legal officer what, but they could start building tomorrow. We've got a village. We know the whole of Turves is flood zone 3. We've also got applications previously 2 months ago where we were told flood zones don't really, we can now mitigate against them, which I keep coming back to, and I will keep coming back to, because I think the whole thing is just a farce regarding flood zones now. I mean, we don't have an ecology report, but we have a site next door. And Turves, we already, as Councillor Benny has said, the old pub. The old reason it was an old pub was because there weren't enough people supporting it, because there's not enough people in Turves to support it. We're just going around in circles here. I mean, to me, the logical thing would be to pass it, but I understand what we're being told. Legally, we can't do that. So we need to find a mechanism to bring this back. It would be nice to think it would come back to us as a committee, because I think my feeling is I would, with an ecological report, as long as it was favourable, I would be happy to pass this. See what everybody else thinks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with anything Councillor Benny said or you said, Councillor Marks, but I just want to bring members' attention to we passed 7 or 8 properties, probably a few more or less opposite on the other side of the road. And I think when I was in favour of the other 3, it was this side of the road was the only place there's any building plots left, any building places that could be with terrace without going through the outside the village envelope. And the village envelope usually comes from the second crossing gates in terms. That's all on that side of the road, and it goes right up past down Burnt House Lane until it meets agricultural land. So that's the village, and that's the start and the finish of the village on the other side of the road. And I said, just to reiterate, we did pass 7 or 8, I can't quite remember, 4 or 5 years ago on the other side of the road. So I don't see too much wrong. We are where we are. It is influence zone 3, as you said. We're not going to ever get away from that. But I just feel that I can support this. Yes, it hasn't got an ecological thing on it, but I think that we should. For me, I think that we that we could pass. I'm in favour of it, of the 3 houses bill, but only refusing it on the ecological tests that have come back, and it should hopefully it'll be brought back to this committee. So I think we should, if members like it, I think if members are happy or have any got anything to say, I think we could probably refuse it on just the ecological test. Councillor French.
Thank you. It seems we're just going round in circles here, but going round the houses. I mean, it's only a few months away to get this survey done. Why can't we just defer it on the one issue only?
Well, that's just what I've just said.
No, you said refuse. You said refuse.
Yeah, we could refuse it only on one, so then they come back with it.
I think the way we're going round the houses, I would prefer to be fair to the applicant and the officers, to defer this for 3 months to let them get the surveys done, and then hopefully it will resolve the issue that is there.
Yeah, 6 months. Yeah. 6 months. Okay, Councillor Benny, are you happy with that? Anybody else happy with it?
My question is, so we're deferring it, but only on the ecology?
Yeah.
So it'll come back to us hopefully, and then with the road paperwork, then this could be approved. That's where I'm coming from. Yeah, that suits me.
Through you, Chairman, as discussed previously, the committee, you can't partly approve an application during the application is, so if it's deferred like other items have happened previously on a single issue, that may well be resolved or not, and you'll get an officer's recommendation based on that information, and obviously members will get to debate and make the decision. You can't fetter the judgment of the committee through partly sort of like implying you're approving aspects of that. So, yeah, my advice at the beginning would have been 2 or 3 months ago, deferred it for longer personally. I would be tempted to not be putting a time restriction on the deferral to allow the applicant to get the ecology report done and then to us for consideration, because it's putting a time restriction on. There's only minutes has come back when it has, when actually, I'm not sure there's a benefit for putting a time restriction on the picture.
Just to remind members, we are still in debate, and I'll bring Councillor Marks in.
To try and put some logic to this, which, yeah, my head's sort of like spinning. We had an application in Maney for 7 houses where we all sat here, we turned it down, and the inspector came along and said no, and whitewashed it straight through, and said that he couldn't see a problem. If the inspector looked at this with the properties next door that are already given, and if this had to go to an appeal because for whatever reason it's been turned down because it's come back to the planners as opposed to us as a committee, again, I would hope logic would prevail.
Well, we're still going round in circles. We're still in debate. I think we've got to. I think I'm losing the will to live here. So and I'm going to break for a cup of coffee in a minute. So, yeah, you can't. Right, so I'm looking for a proposal. Come on. The debate's finished. The debate's finished. I'm going to cut the debate off now because we're going around in circles. Officers, have you got anything to say?
No.
So I'm looking for a proposal. Yeah. That's it. Yeah, we'll do that if you like. Okay. Right. Okay. So, do we want to go with officers' proposal? I'm looking for a proposal to go with officers' recommendation to refuse this application. Have I got a proposal on that lines to go with officers' recommendation to refuse this? I can't see anybody at all last time. So that's obviously failed. I'm looking for another proposal. Councillor Benny, what are you proposing and the reasons for doing so?
Right. Okay, we'll put this one on the table and see if it gets members' support. Right, we approve this application. We debated flood zone 3 to death, I feel. We feel we're quite happy with that one. And we say that we accept that the ecology, we would accept this without ecology. And therefore we approve it. Now, we've been told it's dangerous, but this is down to a committee to decide. If the committee doesn't feel that that is acceptable, then that is down to the committee. I'm happy for this to be turned down if the committee don't like it. But let's put that one on the table first. And if that fails, or I don't get a seconder for it, then we'll look at another proposal, Mr. Chairman. How does that sound?
I'm fully in favour of that proposal. I've been trying it now for the last quarter of an hour. So I will finally bring officers in. They're talking behind.
Sorry, Chairman, if I could just make an observation that if members decide to go ahead and want to approve the application, notwithstanding they are completely, as it were, blind in relation to the ecology, that in my estimation, my advice would be that is a clear, unlawful decision. And it's one I will have to report to your monitoring officer, that decision has been made in the advice we have given, and it would be an unlawful, if it was challenged, it would be successfully challenged.
Okay, so did you want to withdraw that? It seems to me we've taken officer's advice and that seems to be unlawful.
That's fine. I'll take the officer's advice on that and I will withdraw that application. But let's work our way down the list of where we go with this.
So that's
fully within the remit of this committee to do so.
Okay. So at least we've jettisoned one. So do you want to have another go? Then I'll bring Councillor French in. Or do you want Councillor French? You have a go. New face.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I did laugh when Councillor Benny did suggest that, and I did think for 1 minute that our legal and head of planning would be outraged at that, which I think they're absolutely right. I would recommend that we defer this application. I think we need to listen to Matthew Lee as head of planning. We didn't listen the last time when he said it was 3 months wasn't enough. So he's saying now not to give a time frame, but that concerns me. Then that takes it into next year or something like that. So, but I still think a way around this is to defer this application and let the officers work within the report the survey has got to come out.
So obviously that. So what are you proposing? Outline your proposal and the reasons for doing so, please.
I just said
entirety.
Yes.
So we're going to defer this application in its complete entirety on the two reasons. Yes.
Yes, that is the advice that the officers have
that's
said.
Fair enough.
So I think we should listen to the advice.
Okay.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Just to be clear, we cannot drop flood zone 3 off this deferral. There is no way.
Oh, so
there is no. It has to be okay.
Clear now to us. So anyway, so without further ado, we've got a proposal from Councillor French to defer this application. Have we got a seconder on it? Councillor Murphy, thank you. So
how long are we going to defer this for? Because Councillor French is right. If we do it indefinitely, I mean, truthfully, the main.
Let's do it till the end of September. That's the prescribed time, isn't it?
I would have said the end of the year. I mean, that's given them 12 months to do this. And if they haven't brought it back in 12 months, then it needs knocking back anyway.
Okay, go on.
Chair, I was going to say is obviously since I've been here, reports have been brought back for items that had been deferred by the committee from before I was present, and obviously where they haven't progressed, we've brought them back with members deferred it. This hasn't been resolved. We recommend refusal. I think they've actually been refused in accordance with this recommendation. So that's why I would suggest there doesn't necessarily need to be a time per se, because once the opportunity for the ecology report has been done, it should come to us. If it isn't done in a timely manner, then we would bring it back anyway. But if you are looking to, I would encourage the end of the year
let's
as
do that.
reasonable if you do insist on one. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, thank you for clarification. So anyway, moving quickly on, we've got a proposal by Councillor French to defer this application, seconded by Councillor Murphy. We're going to give them till the end of the year to do or to do the ecology. No, we're going to do a year if that's what the committee want. Yeah, we'll do it to the end of the year. So we've got that. So can I have a show of hands on that proposal?
That application is deferred, Chair.
Thank you very much. Eventually we got there. Do we want 10 minutes for a cup of coffee now? Thank you. Thank you, members, for being back promptly. Thank you very much. Without further ado, I'll hand over to Alan Davis. He's the principal officer here at Fenland to present agenda item number 9, FY 25/0807. It's a PIP application. So, Alan, when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Chairman. This application is a permission in principle application to erect 7 dwellings at land south of 6 Bridge Lane, Wimbledon. It's submitted by Morton Hall on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Neil Bowers. And the reason for it being at planning committee today is there are representations contrary to officer recommendation. On the screen above, you'll note the plan on the left-hand side of the screen is the location plan. Note the narrow access from the north, which is Bridge Lane, which then opens up into the bulk of the main site, and as I say, it opens up wider to the south. The aerial view on the right side of the screen demonstrates that the site is beyond the existing building line of the existing development along this part of Bridge Lane. Note the dominant character of Bridge Lane is a linear character in this location. Bridge Lane is effectively a cul-de-sac now, as it does not connect to the road to the east, which means as you enter Bridge Lane from the west, the road slowly narrows. This location is very rural in character, less dense. There are a number of agricultural fields, and the road is narrower than to the west. As I say, the dominant character of Bridge Lane is linear, and the above image demonstrates this. The proposal would expand development south of the existing form of linear development in this part of Bridge Lane, and that's considered to be contrary to policy LP12 of the local plan. The proposed site layout on screen is indicative in nature. As the application is for permission in principle, it is a 2-part process. The first stage is the initial permission in principle. Once that's been determined, should permission be granted, it then moves to a technical detail stage where the additional details would be submitted. At this stage, the layout as proposed is purely indicative. The purpose of the layout is to demonstrate that the proposal is acceptable in terms of its location, use and amount, the 3 things that can be considered at permission principle stage. The committee report assesses the location of the proposal and concludes that the scheme's location is not acceptable as it is contrary to policy LP12 of the Fenland District Local Plan, as it would constitute uncharacteristic backland development in an area with a linear character. Furthermore, the Local Highways Authority has objected to the application on the basis that Bridge Lane is unsuitable to accommodate further development, particularly in view of the narrowing of Bridge Lane in this location. The 4 photographs on screen give some context to the site. The top left-hand photo is the existing access for 6 Bridge Lane and would become a shared access for it and the proposed dwellings, although as with other PIPs, that would be finalised at technical detail stage were permission to be granted. The top right-hand photo shows views towards the site from the rear of the existing dwelling, 6 Bridge Lane. On the screen, the photo with hard standing on the bottom left-hand corner shows the existing hard standing at 6 Bridge Lane. And finally, the bottom right-hand photo is a view of the existing site. As you can see, it's an undeveloped field at the moment, currently agricultural use. In conclusion, the proposal seeks permission in principle for the erection of 7 dwellings. The only matters for consideration are the location, land use and amount of development proposed. The location of the site is considered to be unacceptable due to its detachment from the built form of Wilmington and subsequent erosion of the landscape character of the area from the backland nature of the site. Bridge Lane is incapable of accommodating further development due to the narrowness of the highway and limited opportunities for 2-way vehicle movements. Therefore, the location and use of the site for residential purposes is unacceptable. The proposal is therefore considered to be contrary to policies LP3, 12, 15 and LP16 of the Fenland Local Plan, and the proposal is therefore recommended for refusal. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, thank you, Alan. We have 1 speaker on this application. I'd now like to invite Matthew Hall, of course he's the agent, to make his presentation to the committee. 5 minutes again, Mr. Hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. So all of this site is in flood zone 1, just like the land that was given approval 3 months ago directly to the west of this site. It does abut residential development to the north and is situated, in our opinion, within the development footprint of Wimbledon, which is a growth village under LP3, small village extension. This is for up to 7 dwellings. In our opinion, the site is within the development footprint of Wimbledon. I'll put a map on the screen in a minute. And it's immediately adjacent, as that map shows, immediately adjacent to an approval that was given 3 months ago to the west. So we've read the highways comments and I've discussed these with the applicant himself. And if this is approved, there'll need to be some highway improvements, which the site directly to the west 3 months ago, they had to do or would have to do some highway improvements, which is a lay-by shown in the highway verge on this side of Bridge Lane, which can be achieved. And he knows if this goes forward and if it's approved, technical matters application, we would need to show those highway improvements. As I've just said, the adjacent site to the west, that was approved 3 months ago by members. That site is also in-depth development. However, there was no reason for refusal on that one for being located back from the public highway, but on this site there is. And we're not going as deep in-depth development as that site there. This proposal, if approved, would also eventually lead to the shed on site being demolished. So looking at the map on the screen, this area of Wimbledon, there's numerous approvals in the last 6 years. A lot of those are being built out. Some of them have been built out to the north, west, directly to the west. There's ones at the south. So you can see why this application has come forward. And those applications are off Bridge Lane, Eaton Estate, March Road. Character of the area has changed and is changing. So all the sites in flood zone 1 on the Environment Agency's map, it is within the built-up form of Wimbledon. There's numerous other approvals in very, very close proximity. A lot of those have started. The applicant is fully aware about these highway improvements. I've spoken to him about that, and that's why we're saying it here. I wouldn't say this site is overdevelopment either. We're putting for up to 7. They've all got at least a third garden area. I know it's indicative, but it shows members what might come forward. If approved and we have a technical matters application, that would also lead to the shed to being demolished. And with the highway improvements to Bridge Lane, that's going to benefit everybody who's going to use Bridge Lane. It's not just this site, it's going to benefit everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Hall. Members, questions, clarifications, Mr. Hall, Councillor French, thank you.
Yeah, the question I was going to ask, you're aware of the pain and suffering we went through over the shed. So I'm pleased to hear, if this application was approved, that the shed would be gone.
Yes, I agree. Yes, it would be. Yes.
Councillor Marks, thank you.
Regarding the shed, sorry, Mr. Hall, regarding the shed stroke access, I believe that being kept in the shed, as we heard on numerous occasions, was quite a large steam engine, which was moved by transporter on numerous occasions. So we can get a lorry up and down there, an Arctic lorry up and down. So the road isn't that narrow. We've got, and we will have passing places as well. Obviously, by the removal of the shed, I take it the steam engine may actually go elsewhere, which would stop HGV access as well.
Yes, it would. I totally agree. The site that's been approved recently 3 months ago at the west, they've had to do highway improvements to the site. On the other side to the north, owned by MJS, I think there's highway improvements. There'd have to be highway improvements on, if this is approved on here. So there's going to be highway improvements. The HGVs for the steam engine would stop because I would have to go somewhere else. Yeah.
Did you want to come back again?
Could you also confirm, on the opposite side of the road, there was actually used to be, I think it was Clark's Haulage Company, with a number of lorries as well?
Years ago, it's a site that's owned by MJS. I think it's got permission for 16. That was a haulage yard, various lorries, quite a few years ago. Yes.
Yeah, I think he was a significant haulage business. I think he had several lorries at one time, Mr. Clark. I think when I lived there in Wimbledon, on the other side of the road from Bridge Lane, I could always see lorries coming up. But I think he had 8 or 9 lorries, to be fair. So you know, it's got use for lorries going down it, hasn't it? Thank you. More questions for Mr. Hall at all? No. Thank you very much. Questions, members, questions to officers? No, not at all. Oh, goodness. Righty-ho. So I'd like to invite members to debate the item in respect to material considerations. So there we are. Councillor Benny, you're going to kick it off. Thank you.
I'll give it a try, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Jan. I mean, looking at the reasons for refusal on this, I mean, large scale, in-depth development, 7 houses. It's not quite large scale, is it? In-depth, it's land. When the bypass went around Wimbledon, all of that land will eventually come in for building at some point. We passed 81 houses at the top on the Bellway site. There's been other applications approved. A few months ago, Ben Love had an application on the site to join in this. That's been approved. This will come in for development at some point, and it's got an application in front of us at the moment. Second reason for refusal, proposed development by virtue of the locations away from the public highway, blah, 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 and will just a road fronting and linear form of development. Well, we've already broken that one by passing the one next door to it. It would change the landscape, the character of the landscape. Well, with every house we passed has changed that. Wimbledon has changed beyond in this whole area. So I don't see this is doing any more harm. It's just 7 houses. We passed an awful lot. There's 81 at the top of the road. Bridge Lane is narrow, but we've been told, and I'm fairly sure we will, have highway improvements to this. The applicant is quite happy to pay for well, I assume he's happy, maybe not, to do the highway improvements. And if he doesn't bring those forward, then it won't get built out either. I look at the 3 reasons in front of us for refusal, and they don't add up to me. And as a local councillor, that shed has been the bane of our life now. Steam engines, we don't want to hear about them anymore, do we? And truthfully, I think the residents that live there, I think reluctantly we went along with some of this. But this now gets rid of that shed, and that must improve the quality of life for the people who live around this. As always, nobody wants anything built. Everybody wants a field behind their home. Well, that isn't achievable. I think this is a much better scheme. Well, it's not say it's a better scheme. This is a better solution to some of the problems that we've had on this site from day one. And getting rid of that shed, I hope, will improve the quality of life for neighbours. I've always said it's been a balancing act. And this hopefully will go some way to pleasing the residents that live around there. I think this needs approval. The fact we had an application only latter part of last year that was approved for Ben Love that is adjacent to this site. I've given you my reasons with all of this as to why I think this needs approval on this one. It's not large scale, it's 7 houses. If it was 20, I would say it is then large scale, it's 7 houses. And truly, I think this needs support, members, but that's up to you. We'll see what everybody else says.
Okay, Councillor Marks, thank you.
I have to say, I'm in major agreement with Councillor Benny. This site just seems to have been a nightmare ever since I've sat on planning. We had the building was too big, the building was too tall. You drive around the bypass now, you can't see that this building, the house itself, was going to be a monstrosity. To be fair, you drive around that bypass, you wouldn't tell any difference from anywhere else. The shed has kept coming back and back to haunt all of us. You know, this by taking that shed out, hopefully the neighbouring properties will be happier. And to be fair, when I saw the initial photograph, and drove down there, it almost becomes a gated community, which, you know, again, a benefit maybe, you know, as it's developed. 7 houses, okay, probably 7 to 14 vehicles per day up and down there. We've already heard of the highway improvements that we believe will be undertaken. We have passed the houses next door to it. The whole part of Wimbledon is changing quite drastically. I was quite surprised. My sister was looking at a property that backs down a bit further from this. I looked across, there was one field, but again, been left fallow. And, you know, at some point, I'm guessing that will also be built on. So I'm happy to support this.
Councillor French.
Thank you, Chairman. I do note that the parish council, one of their concerns is draining and flooding. I think we discussed that to death when we discussed MDS and also Ben Loves. I believe that if this is approved, the three developers should get together and actually improve the drainage system down there. So I think actual enhance Bridge Lane.
I'm not going to reiterate what everybody else says, but it just seems a natural progression to me. Like everybody else has said, it'll get rid of that building. It will make next door and 3 or 4 other people's lives far easier down there. So to get rid of that shed's a community benefit. I shall be supporting this scheme. Thank you. Anybody else at all still in debate? I think I finished it off, so I'm going to close the debate now. Officers, have you got anything to say about it all?
No, Chair.
No. Okay. So we'll go to after this. So do I have a proposer to go with officers' recommendation to refuse planning permission? This is up for refusal. Does anybody want to propose refusing it for clarification? No, they don't. So that one obviously fails. I'm looking for another proposal then. Councillor Benny, you've got your hand up. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'd like to propose that we go against officer's recommendation on this one and approve this site. I've been through the reasons. Do you want me to go through them again? No. Yeah, I mean, we would like to be home by 6 o'clock tonight. You know, I feel that it's when I went through them earlier. So if you accept those, Mr. Chairman, that'll save me the job of that one. And
firmly implemented in my brain, Councillor. Right, so those are happy with those reasons. Really, I just can't seem to better those. Any? Did you want to second it, Councillor French? You got your, or did you want to add to it?
Second.
Okay, so with that, I'm happy with that. Councillor Benny's reasons for doing so. So we've got a proposal to go against officer's recommendation to approve this application, proposed by Councillor Benny, seconded by Councillor French. Can I have a show of hands on that?
It's a unanimous decision, Chairman.
That application has been approved. You can.
thank you.
Not too long.
No, very short. To officers, this site has had a history of not getting decision notices out quickly. I would like to ask the officers if they could get this decision notice issued as soon as possible, please.
Technically, it could be by next Friday, a week on Friday, couldn't it? That's generally if we can.
No reason why not, Chairman.
That's good then. That's good enough for me.
We have had where they've taken a long time to come out,
Yeah.
and in view of the history of this site, I would like to see this one run smoothly, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, once and all for all put to bed. I think you and I, all of us, agree here. But a whole working week is a good time, isn't it? So that will do nicely. So without further ado, I'll hand over to David Grant, Senior Development here at Fenland, to present agenda item number 10, FYR 25/0863. Again, it's another PIP, permission in principle. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This application seeks permission in principle for the development of up to 4 dwellings on land northeast of 134 London Road, Chatteris, outside of the development footprint. The reason this application is before Planning Committee is the number of representations contrary to the officer recommendation. The application site is located outside the settlement footprint of Chatteris. The site is situated to the north of London Road and is formed at the front part of the site by a grassed field. The frontage boundary of the site is bordered by a 1.4 metre high hedge with an open boundary to the east. A low-level hedge is sited to the northern rear boundary with a 2 metre high green mesh fence to the western boundary with the Seasons Garden Centre beyond. Arable fields are located to the north of the site and on the opposite side of London Road. This slide 3 shows an aerial photograph showing the distance to the built-up settlement. The site is separated by 750 metres from the edge of the built-up settlement, with significant areas of arable land in between, albeit interspersed with loose-knit residential developments. Slide 4 shows an illustrative site plan. The illustrative site plan indicates the partial removal of the existing boundary treatment on the site frontage and the provision of a line of 4 dwellings with associated parking and landscaping, together with the provision of a new access road connecting to the highway in the southwest corner of the site. Kindly note that the illustrative site plan does not show the future provision of a footpath to the frontage of the site. Slide 5 shows the site visit photos. Photo 1 at the top of the slide shows a view looking north over the application site, with Seasons Garden Centre to the left of the image and an access road serving 132 London Road to the right of the image. Image 2 shows a view of the site frontage hedge. Image 3 shows a view looking east from the site frontage, showing a large extent of arable land with a dwelling named Galltree Lodge in the distance. Image 4 shows a view looking west from the site frontage, showing a large extent of arable land and a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit sign, which is a speed limit not commonly found in a built-up settlement. In conclusion, this application seeks permission in principle for up to 4 dwellings on land northeast of 134 London Road outside the development footprint of Chatteris. The application site constitutes an area of land outside of the development footprint of Chatteris within an elsewhere location as defined in the local plan. Under policy LP3 of the Fenland local plan, this site is considered to be an elsewhere location where new housing is only supported if it is demonstrably essential to a rural-based enterprise. No such justification has been provided. Development of this site would result in an unacceptable urbanisation, extended development into the countryside, further eroding the character of the area and the open countryside. Additionally, the site and surrounding area is not served by a footpath, further highlighting the unsustainable and unsuitable nature of the location for residential development. To add to this, Chatteris Town Council and the County Highways Officer have expressed concerns for the safety of pedestrians and all road users due to the lack of a footpath serving the site on this section of the road with a speed limit of 50 miles an hour. The nearest footpath is located some 110 metres from the site to the frontage of the Grange, on the opposite southern side of London Road to the north of the Stocking Grove Junction. A permission in principle application can only assess location, use and quantum of development. The future provision of a footpath cannot be conditioned should this application be determined for approval. To conclude, aside from the lack of footpath provision adjacent to a 50-mile-an-hour road, the proposal site is located in an elsewhere location and would have a material impact on the rural character of the area. The development proposal will therefore be contrary in principle to policies LP3, LP15 and LP16 of the Fenland local plan. The recommendation is therefore one of refusal.
Yep, thank you, David. We have one speaker on this application, and now I'd like to invite Matthew Hall. Again, he's the agent to make his presentation to the committee. Again, you've got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. So members will be fully aware of the history of this area of Chatteris. There have been numerous approvals given here since 2019. One of those is under delegated powers. Been 17 dwellings approved at this location, that's without this site. In our opinion, that confirms that this is part of Chatteris due to the number of adjacent approvals, but that's up to members to decide. When you visit sites, some of those dwellings have been completed, lived in, some are under construction. We're working on some at the moment, building regulations, drawings. People have brought them, want to move to the area. We're doing one of those at the moment. So it shows there's a need for these plots. And when you look at one of the Google maps that was on the screen, it could be considered infill between the Four Seasons Garden Centre and the dwelling next door. All of the site is in flood zone 1. There's no objections from members of the public. There's no objections from Chatteris Town Council at all. Looking at the map on the screen that I submitted, you can obviously see the site. I've hatched that in red just, and all the other approvals in this area in the last 6 years. Some of those are built out, some are lived in, some have been sold. Shows there's a need, and directly to the southwest of this site is the Four Seasons Garden Centre. That used to be, before they brought it, used to be a garden centre that got run down. It's been replaced now with obviously a large garden centre, cafe, that needs supporting as well. Could be determined infill development. In our opinion, this is now part of Chatteris. The character of the area has changed, is changing, given the number of approvals in the last 6 years. It's all in flood zone 1. There's no objections from consultees or any members of the public. Could be considered infill between Four Seasons Garden Centre, given the other number of approvals, and even when you look on that map, you may have existing dwellings that are around in that area. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Mr. Hall. Members, questions, clarifications to Mr. Hall? None at all. Thank you. Members, questions, clarifications to officers? No? Okay. So now I'd like to invite members to debate the item in respect to material planning considerations. Thank you. Who wants to kick the... You do, Councillor Marks. Thank you.
Thank you. We've been here numerous times before. We were here last month with an application literally half a mile down the road. They say there's no pavement. To be fair, how come then we have a new garden centre that's been built when people actually want to walk to a garden centre more than they probably actually want to walk to their houses? I'm sorry, I see this as, and I agree with Mr. Hall, that this almost is infill along there. We know that the Chatteris boundary seems to get further and further to the top of or the bottom of Ferry Hill as you come around the corner where the Chatteris sign is. Yes, it's in a 50 mile an hour, but I believe talking to Chatteris or listening to Chatteris Town Council, they are trying to look at sort of like getting that speed limit reduced anyway. We've done on Stocking Drove, we've just put, I think we gave 5, if not 6 self-builds it behind Ferry, is it Ferry Farm, which is just on the corner there. Again, yes, there is a footpath there, but there is not certainly up Stocking Drove, which is quite a busy road because people use that as a bit of a rat run to get through. Personally, I feel that I could support this application.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Marks. Anybody else at all? Councillor Benny, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, we keep hearing that this isn't in Chatteris, but if you keep travelling down to the bottom of Ferry Hill, there's a sign there that says "Welcome to Chatteris" and "Welcome to Fenland." So, yeah, we've had this debate many times. Members seem to think that Chatteris starts at the bottom of Ferry Hill rather than where the new Hallam Land development, which is where officers think it is, but all these others have been approved on that on the basis that members feel that that's further out. I mean, it's a shame we didn't get the footpath when Seasons Garden Centre. That should have been added in. And for some reason, it got missed off. I don't know whether Councillor Murphy knows anything more about that. He was on the council when that was being done. Do you know anything about that, Councillor Murphy? No, he don't know anything about it. But there should have been a footpath put down there, and that got missed off for somehow, and therefore it never got put in. But again, I see nothing wrong with this. This is part of Chatteris, and I will be supporting this afternoon.
Councillor Murphy, now then. Wise words, hopefully.
One never knows. Yes, I would like to say about this one, because at the end of the day, as you can see, when they showed the photographs just now, you'd think it was in the middle of the countryside. I didn't see any buildings around there at all. Well, you go down there and have a look to see. Every other place has got a building with it, 2 or 3 buildings. As you just said, Ferry Farm, there's 5 more to go up there that have been passed. They've been passed all the way along there. Chatteris is going out, and it's going right out to Ferry Hill, and that's where it will finish up eventually, on top of Ferry Hill as it goes down. That's where the sign is anyway now. But that is what is happening all the way along there. I'm not inviting all large scale planning developments, but these sort of things are 4 and 5, and in each one of those is taking the road out of Chatteris or out of the built up area of Chatteris, and it's filling up the ground that's all the way through. And it will happen, and it will happen, and it's going to happen now, and it should happen now. Because at the end of the day, as I say, if you look at it and look at that one of those photographs up there, there's buildings all over the place, and there's far more buildings that have got permission that are not granted and built out yet. And when that starts, it's even all the way, it'll be all the way down that road, and it should be. And that is my idea of what Chatteris is all about. The footpath, the Chatteris Town Council would like the footpath to go down from Sutton Gold down. It is one side all the way down to Sutton Gold. What we really do need is a bit farther down to Seasons. There was never a footpath anyway down to the thing there before. But now Seasons is getting quite busy now, and it needs a footpath. It doesn't need a footpath both sides of the road. You can carry it on down one side and then go across the road into it. People walk down there now anyway on the grass verge, so there's no problems with that whatsoever. And I see no problems with this application whatsoever, and I think it's a great application and it should go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to reiterate what everybody else says. I feel I'm in support of this application. Anybody else at all? No? Okay. I'm closing the debate. Officers?
Yes.
You've got something to say?
Yes.
Well done.
Just to point out that you've made the point with regards to other development within the area. You state that the village sign is considered to constitute the area where the built-up settlement starts. If you are to approve these 4 dwellings and the other schemes of 3, 4, what are considered by yourselves to be infill dwellings, in what is considered by planners to be in an unsustainable location, you will not be gaining any Section 106 contributions from that. Additionally, you've made reference to the application heard at the 10th of December committee at 120 London Road under reference 25096, which was also a PIP application. That application was 350 metres from the built-up settlement and was served by a footpath on the opposite side of London Road to the south. This application is more than twice the separation distance from the built-up settlement and is not served by a pedestrian footpath on either side of the highway, which has a speed limit of 50 miles an hour. The examples that are given on that plan, as pointed out previously in my PowerPoint, Galtree Lodge and the area to the south, continuing past 120 London Road towards what is considered to be the built-up settlement of Chatteris, is served by a footpath. And as you can see, some dwellings were approved there under outlines, pips and fulls. However, they were served by a footpath. No footpath is proposed for this development, and concerns have been expressed by the Highways Officer and Chatteris Town Council. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor French?
Thank you, Chairman. I have listened to the planning officer's update. First off, can I say Chatteris is a town, not a village. 4 dwellings, we wouldn't expect any Section 106s. And as we're well aware, it is a PIP application. We would like a footpath, but we can't request it under a PIP.
Absolutely can't. These PIPs are getting far too common. Right, okay. Councillor Murphy?
Let's come back with one of the things that's saying we won't get any 106 contributions to it. Well, that won't hurt us because we don't get them anyway.
True. The first application proves it all. Okay, any more before we, officers, anything else? That was a comment from Councillor Murphy. Right, so that's it then. So I'm looking for the proposal. This proposal against officer recommendation. Do I have a proposal to go with officer's recommendation to refuse this application? No, giving you all a chance. No, the application has failed. I'm looking for a different proposal then. Right, anybody quickly? Councillor Benny, thank you. What is your proposal and your reasoning for doing so?
Okay. I would like to propose we go against officer's recommendation on this and approve this application. I don't consider that this is an elsewhere location. It's Chatteris starts at the bottom, and because it's a pit, we can't ask for a footpath on this. Personally, I would like to see when it comes back if there was a speed survey done and if there was justification for reducing the speed limit down there. But we can't ask for that now. But as a member, I would like to see that, and I would like to see a footpath if it is possible on there, if it is feasible within the development. But that's not what is here before us today. We're just looking at the land usage of that, and therefore all we're looking at is this an elsewhere location? I don't consider it is, and therefore I'd like to see this approved today.
Without further ado, I'll hand over to Tracy Ranger, the Development Officer here, to present agenda item 11, F/YR25/08340, agenda item number 11. So when you're ready, Tracy, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The application seeks outline approval for residential development for up to 8 dwellings with matters committed only in respect to access on land west of 78 to 88 Station Road, Mainey. The reason this application is before committee is the number of representations contrary to officer recommendation. There is an objection from Mainey Parish Council regarding drainage on site. The proposal site consists of a parcel of land located at the corner of Station and Wimbledon Roads in Mainey, as can be seen on these red line boundary diagrams. The site is currently agricultural land, but has residential and agricultural development to the north, east and to the south. 2 outline applications for up to 4 dwellings were previously refused on the same site by the Planning Committee in November 2022 and March 2024. The reasons for refusal on both applications was that the sequential test had not been adequately applied and thus was considered failed. The indicative site plan is shown on the slide. The indicative site plan suggests that 8 semi-detached dwellings along with the access and garden space can be accommodated on the site. The previous applications for up to 4 dwellings had the same red line area. The application site forms part of the agricultural field at the entrance to the settlement, bounded to the north by the workplace home development of Charlemont Drive. To the south, on the opposite side of Wimbledon Road, is a group of commercial buildings with further linear residential development to the south. On the opposite side of Station Road is loose-knit linear residential development. Consequently, it would be difficult to argue that the principle of residential development was unacceptable given these surroundings. Photo 1 is looking south along the front of the site and Station Road towards the centre of the village. Photo 2 is looking southwest towards Wimbledon Road and across the site. Photo 3 is looking west along the site. Photo 4 looking north towards 7 and 11 Short Drive. In summary, the proposed development would be of a scale that is in keeping with the area and, subject to layout, design and finishes, would not detract from the character of the site and the area. However, members should note the early refusals on the same site. The circumstances have not changed in respect to flood risk. The site is located within flood zone 3 and the applicant has not shown that the development is sequentially acceptable and thus should be refused as it conflicts with national and local policy. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Tracy. Now I'd like to invite members. So thank you, Tracy. We have one set of speakers on this application. I'd now like to invite Archie Herson, he's the applicant, and Matthew Hall, of course, he's the agent, to make their presentations to the committee. You've got 5 minutes between you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought it was a very good presentation by the officer saying the principal development's acceptable, and I thought it was a lot of compliments, to be honest, in that presentation. I really did, to be honest. So the applicants, who we'll hear from in a minute, have lived in Maney for 30 years. There's material planning change on this application. We've shown, as we've heard before, in Maney, smaller properties here, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, semi-detached, more affordable houses rather than the large dwellings that were applied for and refused before. Smaller properties we've seen approved at Lavender Mill Bungalow or Fallow Corner in Flood Zone 3 in the last 18 months. There's no objections to this application, none, from members of the public, none at all, and the Environment Agency don't object. There's no objections from Highways, Environment Agency, Environmental Services, Ecology, and all the buildings are located outside the middle levels 9-metre strip. And members will be aware, which you see on the map that I submitted on the screen, that Maney Railway Station has obviously been expanded. And this is within 390 metres, easy walking distance of the railway station. There's an adoptable footpath from here all the way up to the north. And looking at the map, the site's in red, which is obviously this site, and we've hatched on there other approvals that have been given in Maney in Flood Zone 3, so to the south and to the north of this site, the areas that are in obviously Flood Zone 3 as well. And you can see when you look at the map on the screen, there's a lot of properties, a lot of buildings, I think as the officer said, to the north, to the east and to the south of this site, which I completely agree with. So this isn't an elsewhere location, which the officer has kindly confirmed it's not. Even in the officer's own report under 10.2, it states the principle of development at this site is acceptable, given its location. The report further states the proposal subject to design would comply with policy LP 16. Scheme complies with policy LP 15 as stated in the report. There's a lot of positives in this report from the officer, I think. There's no public objections. We're in close proximity to that railway station within walking distance, and you can see on the screen is other approvals given much further out and adjacent this site. Thank you.
Thank you for your time today in hearing this presentation. I wanted to come today to talk directly to you, really as the applicant and also the landowner, but fundamentally a local person. I've lived in Maney and the surrounding area for the last 30 years. I planted a hedge on the Wimbledon Road with my own hands, and I take this opportunity just briefly to appeal to the chairman to reconsider the declaration from Councillor Marks that the applicant, excuse me, it isn't my father, it's myself and my brother, whether or not that changes the outcome of the conversations at a later date, but I appeal to your judgment on whether or not that be appropriate. But what I wanted to come and talk to you very briefly about was, look, for us, we're not developers. This isn't an opportunity for us to, in some way, take. It's really to give back. It's a modest development in an area of Maney that absolutely is primed for this kind of opportunity. And Councillor Benny talked, I think, very movingly about the opportunity for families to live together, but fundamentally to bring the human element. And Maney is no better example of that. It's a multi-generational village, and what this is really an opportunity to bring honest housing to honest people at a time where it is fundamentally and crucially needed in a location that benefits from the infrastructure, the investment in Maney train station, and of course the surrounding element and the surrounding area. So I come before you today to ask you to consider the opportunity and the application in which in the spirit in which it has been submitted. And again, I thank you for your time. Thank you.
Yep, thank you very much for that, your presentation. Members, questions, clarifications to, you've got one, Councillor French.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Hall, you've got two applications, one in March 2024 for 4 dwellings refused, one in November 2022 for 4 dwellings refused. What has actually changed since your last refusal in 2024, and you've actually doubled the amount of dwellings?
Thank you. The previous applications, which we didn't do, were for large 4, 5-bed houses. So we've had a complete and utter rethink, because if we'd have applied for less houses, say 2 or 3, it would have been gross underdevelopment of the site, out of character of the area. So we've had a complete rethink, gone for smaller dwellings, which has meant denser development, which I don't think the officers raised concern on. So it's a complete and utter rethink, smaller dwellings.
Anybody else at all? Councillor Benny, thank you.
A question for Mr. Hall. Looking at the drawing up there, you got your son Michael doing some colouring with his crayons up there. It's very colourful, that one. I wondered if you were bringing him into the family business, whether it's a change from your usual presentation that you do.
I won't answer the question.
I think
Chairman.
it was a pretty flippant comment, wasn't it? Really? No. Okay, that's fine. Bring a bit of lightheartedness to it all, I suppose. Any questions at all, clarifications before we let these gentlemen go? There isn't, so thank you very much for your presentation. Officers, have you members questions to officers? Thank you. No, you've had your chances. No, so thank you very much for that. So members, I'd like to invite you to debate the item in respect to material planning considerations. So we're in debate. Who wants to kick this off? Anybody wants to kick this off? We're in debate. I'm looking at time of the essence. Come on, Councillor French, thank you.
Yeah, looking at 5.7 middle level commissioners within, I'm sorry, I should have declared an interest as a member of drainage boards. This does concern me. Even if this does get planning permission, it doesn't mean to say they're going to be built out, because of the strict rules that the commissioners actually have on this 9 metre bylaw strip. So that does concern me.
Okay. Just remind members we're in debate. Who wants to carry that on? Ten seconds left, anybody? Just give it time. Nope, right, that's it. So the debate is ended. Do I have a proposer to go with officer recommendation to refuse planning permission? This is up for refusal. Do I have a proposer to do that? Councillor French. Okay. Do I have a seconder? I'll second that then. So just before I do second it, which is not usually the thing I do, does anybody else want to? No, they don't, so I'll carry on and I'll second that then. So we've got a proposer from Councillor French to go with officer recommendation to refuse this, seconded by myself, David Connor. Can I have a show of hands on that proposal, please?
That's 4 votes, Chairman.
Those against?
No votes, Chairman.
Okay. Are you abstaining? Yeah, so that application has been refused.
Sorry, Chair, just obviously I sat this one out. The reason I sat it out, and obviously Mr. Hurst made a comment, The applicant, it does say Mr. Richard Hurston, hence why.
I totally accept that.
So,
I don't want that to influence the outcome decision which is made. Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for your honesty on that one, Captain. Thank you very much, Mr. Hurston, as well. So we'll quickly move on. Agenda item number 12 has been withdrawn. So we move on to Fallows Corner, application 13. Who's doing this one? 13. Who is doing this one? That'll be you. Yep, sorry about that. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda item 13 seeks permission in principle for the erection of 9 dwellings on land to the south of Lavender Mill Close on Fallow Corner Drove in Mainey. Members will be aware of the update in relation to this item, the details of which were circulated separately, but this does not alter the original recommendation set out with the agenda. Since the publication of the update report, we have received a further letter of objection from a resident of Fallow Corner Drove, querying the validity and relevance of the additional agricultural yield evidence provided by the applicant. However, this neither does not alter the recommendation. So as you'll understand, this is a stage 1 application where consideration is restricted to matters of location, size and land use only, and all other matters are reserved for the stage 2 application should the PIP be granted. This application is before members owing to the number of representations contrary to officer recommendation. The application site is edged in red on the location and aerial photos as shown. Mainey is classed as a growth village where development and new service provision either within the existing urban area or as a small village extension will be appropriate. However, as you can see, the application site is located outside of the built form of the settlement of Mainey on the southern side of Fallow Corner Drove. The built form of the settlement extends north on the northern side of the Fallow Corner Drove, and the south remains largely undeveloped. Thus, whilst the site is in close proximity to the settlement of Mainey, the site being located in open countryside on the southern side of Fallow Corner Drove is considered an elsewhere location. Whilst the site is in close proximity to the settlement, as I said, it is an elsewhere location, and the application does not include any information to suggest it was related to any of the exceptions outlined in LP3. The application site constitutes an undeveloped area of agricultural land located outside the developed footprint, and development at this site would not respect the rural character or settlement pattern of the village. It would result in an unacceptable urbanisation and set a precedent for future development on the southern side of the road, and further erode the open character of the area. As such, the principle is considered contrary to LP12, and this seeks to ensure development will not have an adverse impact on the character and appearance of the surrounding countryside and should respect the core shape of the settlement, which this application does not. It can also be seen that the land levels from the photo 3 in particular fall away from the site and the road, with the site sitting lower than the development on the north side and lower than the road itself, which offers some visual representation of the real-world depiction of the likely flood risk. The site and surrounding area are located in flood zone 3 and therefore will be at high probability of fluvial or tidal flooding. For elsewhere locations, the area of search for sequential tests in such locations should be district-wide. However, the application was not supported by an appropriate sequential test as it concentrated the area of search to Mainey only. Therefore, on this basis alone, the sequential test is considered failed. Furthermore, the sequential test is also considered failed as matters of the design and quantum, which were considered by the applicant as reasons to discount sites with previous approvals, is not relevant in this application as permission in principle does not consider these matters. It's merely a case of location only. Accordingly, it's considered that insufficient assessment has been undertaken and adequate information submitted to demonstrate that it is not possible for the development site to be located on a site of lower flood risk and therefore is contrary to policy on this basis. Slightly different one here. The application site is also within the ooze washes or local to the ooze washes site of specific scientific interest. That's a bit of a mouthful, apologies. There are other designations including a special protection area, a special area of conservation and a Ramsar site. The application site is considered by Natural England to have the potential to provide important winter roosting and foraging habitat for ooze washes qualifying bird species. And as such, it is essential to maintain such habitat for these birds. The application was not supported by any ecological evidence, and as such, insufficient information was submitted to inform any necessary habitat regulation assessment for the site. Furthermore, Natural England object on the basis that the site is within an area of deep peat, and there's been no appropriate soil evidence to suggest that there would be an impact to said peat. Therefore, unfortunately, matters of ecology are material planning considerations, and with respect to the site's inappropriate location, are unable to be considered and should be refused on this basis.
Okay, thank you very much, Daniel. We have one speaker on this application. I'd now like to invite Matthew Hall, the agent, to make his presentation to the committee. You've got 5 minutes again. Very busy today, Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this site has been in the ownership of the Hawes family for over 50 years, and they farm approximately 750 acres of land. The applicant or ourselves did submit, it was late, I understand it was late, a yield map for this section of the field. It was submitted late, which officers kindly included to show that this end of the field, I think due to black grass, is extremely poor yield when compared with the rest of the field. We did submit that late, I understand that. So it mainly is a growth village under policy LP3, where being a growth village, it states a small extension may be appropriate, and this site, in our opinion, on the other map, abuts permanent development to the west. Over half these objections aren't even from people in Fenland, where all the supporters are from people in Mainey. Looking at the map I've got on the screen, which hopefully the drawing is better this time, Councillor Benny might be able to comment on that, you can see all to the north of this site there's continuous residential development, large individual houses, and when you look along there, I've hatched the areas, hopefully better than the last application, where there's been approvals given all along, some of those in flood zones. A lot of those, some of them we've done, some we haven't, all to the east, far closer to the used washes. The last one, excuse me, that's hatched in blue, planning in principle was given for 5 dwellings. We've just submitted the outline application. That was obviously up for refusal, passed by members. It wasn't mentioned on there from my memory about ecology or being near the used washes. And of course, we've got to do an ecology report. I totally understand. Of course, we've got to have biodiversity net gain. We always do submit that with our applications. But when you look along this side of Fallow Corner Drove as well, to the west, I've hatched a green area where I think the properties have been built out. That was approved. So there is development on this side of Fallow Corner Drove, their residential dwellings. And also when I went down here, I went down here quite a bit because we're doing jobs down at Pearls Bridge. The bottom right-hand corner to the east, I've hatched an area of green, which is a dwelling that was approved at this committee. We didn't do it, 2018. Large dwelling that was built out of the ground, I think 1.82 metres, landscaped. And it sits in there, an absolute treat. It looks really, really good. And again, that's development on this side of Fallow Corner Drove. Anglian Water or the Environment Agency don't raise any objection to this application. The applicants are also a member of the Drainage Board, so they know their responsibilities with regards to drainage. And our understanding is, I've been in quite a few of the houses down there at Fallow Corner Drove over the years. They're on septic tanks, stroke treatment plants. This is a fairly large site we've got here, so we'd expect the same, so we shouldn't be putting pressure on Anglian Water's foul water treatment plant in Mainey. On the indicative plan we submitted, normally we would show layout of houses, etc. We haven't this time. However, we have encompassed all of the highway verge in that red line, and along here, members who've done a site visit will see there is a large highway verge. And highways haven't objected to this application. However, that will allow some community benefit. we could widen out this section of Fallow Corner Drove. We could put a large lay-by in. There's a big highway verge here. That would bring community benefit. I know it can't be conditioned on this application, but we're stating that here. Members will know that's what would be proposed if this goes through at the technical matters stage, and that would benefit all users of Fallow Corner Drove. This is a growth village, small village extension in our opinion, complies with policy LP3, septic tanks, treatment plants. We wouldn't be putting pressure on Anglian Water treatment works, improvements to the highway. I know that can't be conditions, but that's what's in our mind. And when you look at the map that we've submitted, there's numerous other approvals here, much further to the east, further down Fallow Corner Drove. Some we've done, some we haven't. So you can probably see why this section of Fallow Corner Drove's come forward. And also there is development on this side of Fallow Corner Drove, the hatched area that I've hatched green. Some buildings were built there by a local builder. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Members, questions, clarifications to Mr. Hall? Okay, Councillor Marks, thank you.
Mr. Hall, whereabouts along there? I'm trying. Is the green next door to the yellow? Sorry, by the red hatched area. Is that the entrance now to Lavender Mill that's just had all the road improvements done to the corner off Westfield Road?
So the yellow hatching directly opposite this site is the site there's a bungalow on or something where it's been approved to be knocked down and put 4 or 5 on there. I don't think works have started. The great big green hatched area is the mill, but the one further to the west, that's where I think 2 houses have already been built out.
No, sorry. It's the hatched area. It's the main mill one because there's been road improvements already done along there, and that is where.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I can see where you mean now. Anybody else at all? Yeah, Councillor Purser, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just looking at the piece of agricultural land in there, as it's still agricultural land at the moment. Am I right in thinking you said in your presentation there that it's still agricultural land but pretty poor yield, so it's actually not really producing anything of any value or any good in there at all?
It's still used for agriculture, that section, but along there on the yield map, which we did submit to the officer very late, I understand that. It's a bit difficult to see. The purple at the top here is where it's a poor yield, and this is obviously the rest of the field where it's a much better yield. So I think that's due to black grass. That's what the applicant has submitted, yes. Yes.
Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you, Councillor Purser. Anybody else at all? No, before we let Mr. Hall go. Okay, thank you very much. So members, questions, clarifications to officers? Nothing? No. Okay, moving on quickly then. I'd now like to invite members to debate the item in respect of material planning considerations. So we're in debate quickly, and it's Councillor Marks, thank you, to kick it off.
Thank you, Chair. This is my area, or my ward. I've done a lot of work with Lavender Mill and the residents of Fallow Drove up around Lavender Mill as well, and that application. This is a real 50-50 for me. Yes, I can see that people have a view, they are looking across a field, but equally I can see that this piece of land does fall into an area that I think could be built on. This is only a PIP application at the end of the day. Flood zone, well, we've got to be consistent. With the flood zone map that we saw, we've given 2 properties on the corner recently planning permission. Jason Cook's yard, which isn't quite in there now, we've built that so high out of the ground, and you've probably heard me say it before, that it's got steps up to it. Again, we've got mitigation around flood zone. I mean, we've got a piece of land there. We're told black grass black grass is a terrible thing. You can't get rid of it these days. Simple reason is that because of Nature Conservancy and stuff, you can't spray it off with the correct chemicals. So what's this land actually going to actually produce in years to come? It's land usage. We've also had Lavender Mill when they put their application in, and it's now been done. The drainage has been improved tenfold there. We used to have flooding on the corner. That's all been now taken away. Lavender Mill actually is discharging into the Anglian water system via pump. If you look at the top blue section, about there is where it's pumped across into the system. That is the last one. These are on septic tank, which again, I think is a big bonus for Mainey, having been standing out there at 10, 11, 12 and 1 o'clock in the morning watching Mainey flood. This is not putting more pressure on Anglian water for the sewage works. As you look there, the half C on the top there has now been given 115 houses, permission for 115. That's going to go definitely into the system, which is going to cause us more problems. And again, with a lot more throughout Mainey. At the moment, I'm still 50-50. I'd like to hear what colleagues have said who've had a look at it, but I am minded at the moment to probably be more in support than not.
Okay. Yep. Good points, local. As you're the local member, you should probably know more than anybody else, I would have thought. Anybody else? We're still in debate, of course. Anybody else want to add to it? Did you want to come back, Councillor Marks?
One other point is that between the green and the red section there is actually a disused mill. It's been used as a garage. It's been used to add varying things, but I understand, in years to come, that will either come up for a barn conversion or whatever. So the likelihood is that this will be a continuous run on. We've heard about ribbon development, but this will lead along. Next door to it is a dog field. I very much doubt that will ever get built on, personally.
Right, so, yeah, we had a good history lesson from Councillor Marks there. Anybody else at all want to enter this debate? I'm looking before I close it. No? Okay, that's finished. Okay, sorry.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Chair. Well, similar to the application earlier, this application is subject to an objection from Natural England, and the habitats regulations require that a planning authority has to carry out a screening exercise in the light of the ecological information it's provided with. And in the light of that screening exercise, it then has to possibly carry out an appropriate assessment, because you've got the SPA and the SSSI nearby. Now, at the moment, members do not have any environmental information to support the application, or ecological information. So I don't know if members are minded to want to approve this application, but the habitat regulations would prevent an approval from being granted in the absence of ecological information. So it would not only be a breach of guidance, it would be a breach of those regulations. And again, it's a matter of unlawful decision being taken against those regulations if approval were to be granted.
So coming on from then, just something's crept into my mind. The one at Turves was a full application for the 3 houses. This is only a PIP. So is it the same? Because all it is we're looking at now, and said on many occasions here this afternoon, it's just land use. Is that difference? Because that if we say, yeah, that's okay for land use, that's absolutely fine. Will that have to be sorted out, all the SSSI stuff and all the Natural England stuff, at a later date before that goes any further, surely?
No, because you're being asked today to grant an approval in principle by virtue of the PIP. Therefore, and you cannot impose conditions. Even if you could, you couldn't override the need to consider whether or not screening is required.
Okay.
So you can't grant permission today or approval today and further down the line, it might be apparent that there's going to be an adverse impact on the SSI or special area of conservation, in which case you've already granted approval.
Yeah, but surely though, and tell me if I'm wrong, if it's like everything else, if it doesn't meet the right specifications or the right things to do on the land, the lands to do all that, it won't get built anyway.
Yeah, but my concern is the regulations require that the council does not grant a permission or a PIP in the absence of any ecological supporting information.
You can indeed.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen, but my understanding is obviously this legislation isn't just about planning. It's about any decision the council makes. So while we may have planning legislation and PIPs, which etc., we look at, it's this legislation and impacts on the decisions, any decision the council makes, whether it could be a decision whether to collect refuse from a road or not. It's any decision in how it impacts that. So it's slightly different to a normal plan application situation where this legislation is sitting alongside us and imposing its own restrictions on planning outside of the normal decisions. Would you agree with that, Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, it is, but I'm just focusing now on the application before you, that you cannot lawfully grant this permission. You can defer it or you can refuse it, but you can't grant it, otherwise it will be in breach of those regulations.
Okay. Thank you for that, Stephen. Councillor Marks.
I'm still not clear which way I'm going to go on this, but if we deferred it, we could defer it just on that one item. Is that correct?
Technically, yes, but the whole thing would have to come back to members or reconsider it. You can't dice and slice it and say we're not going to consider other issues.
Okay, that's something to bear in mind later on in the discussion, I suppose. Did you want to come back? Are you got something to say, Councillor French? You obviously.
Well, I did want to come back, but I think, we've had so many of these PIPs, and it appears that, we keep being told you can't ask for this, that, and the other under a PIP. Now it seems that we can. So I'm a bit confused on this one.
Getting confused. Wish it was home time, really. So could you answer that?
Sorry, what was the question again? Quite followed.
Yeah, see, we're told, we've had so many of these PIPs, and we've been told that we can't ask for this, that, or the other because it's a PIP. But now you're actually saying we can ask. So that's the confusion.
I think all I'm saying is, as English Nature have pointed out, you do not have the ecological information before you to make a decision in principle to approve this application. If the applicant supplies that information, then English Nature may be happy and you may be happy, but you don't have that at the moment.
So it's clear to me, we can do, Stephen's told us the legal aspect of it. There's two ways we can go. We can refuse it or we can defer it. Yeah. Legal wise. Councillor Marks? Councillor Benny? Yeah.
Taking the legal advice that we got, I think we need to defer this one to get the ecological report. But
that'll save us going round houses like we did at Turves, to be fair.
I mean, just my ears, maybe they're not working properly today. But Stephen, did you say we can defer it just on the ecological aspect?
No, as before, you can't split it up and defer it only on one item.
We've got to defer the whole application to sum it all up in a nutshell, if that's the way you want to go.
My ears weren't working because that's what I thought you said, and I thought, well, that contradicts what you said on the earlier application, which was just what I was agreeing.
No, Councillor French.
So the Turves one we haven't put. We'll put till the end of the year. So are we going to put a timescale on this one to get the information we need? Are we going to do this one to the end of the year as well if it's deferred? I'm now looking at Matthew. He gave us the advice last year. We ignored his advice, so we'll listen to his advice now.
The Chairman, my advice would normally be that we don't put any restriction on deferring, because if there's an issue to be resolved, there's an issue to be resolved. But just because even if the first reports were done and there was then wanted some feedback, going backwards and forwards with the consultee, etc., that's why I would never encourage that, and provided there was active engagement, the LPA wouldn't look to bring it back. Obviously, like I've said before, we've had schemes that the committee have deferred that then haven't progressed, and we've brought them back with recommendation refusal because reasons for the referral haven't moved forward and members have agreed with that and refused it. So my advice would always be not to put a time constraint on it, because it could end up in a situation where we bring a report back that's a week away from being able to be resolved or something. So that's why I would suggest that we don't do it. You know, it's just give it trust that officers and the agents and the developer will be working together to resolve the issue it's been deferred on.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. Yeah. Okay. So we're still in debate, everybody. So what? So anybody else got anything? Yeah. Okay.
So it's getting confusing again. This one is. So you're actually saying the best way of going it is to defer it straight away. Yeah. Now with no ifs and buts or anything else in it.
That's the way I'm reading into it.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah.
You want to refuse it? Okay. So I've got a proposal from Councillor Murphy to go with officer's recommendation to refuse this application. To be clear, have we got a seconder for that? No. So obviously we'll take a vote on it. Those against that, just quickly, hands up, just to make sure.
Those against refusal.
Against refusal. That's, yeah. So okay, that's failed. So I'm looking for another proposal. You do complicate things. What have we got, Councillor French?
I propose we defer this application and we take the head of planning's advice on this.
Okay. So I've got a proposal for Councillor French to defer this application. Have I got a second? For goodness sake, somebody put their hand up. I'll take Councillor Marks. So that's goodness. So I've got a proposal to defer this. Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Marks. Can I have a show of hands on that?
Application is deferred, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. So moving on quickly to, we're going to number 14 now. I'll hand over to Danielle Brooke to present this application, FY/YR25/0802. It's another PIP, my goodness me, agenda item number 14. So Danielle, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, agenda item 14 seeks permission in principle for the erection of 9 dwellings on land northwest of 176 High Road, Hassock Hill Drove in Gorefield. The application site is edited in red on the location plan and aerial photos are shown. The site is located on the edge of Gorefield, which has been identified as a small village, where only limited development, normally residential infill or small business opportunities will be supported. However, the development must also comply with the more detailed policy criteria of LP12 as well as LP3. The proposal will introduce development of up to 9 dwellings into an area that currently has a strong relationship with the adjoining countryside, and when considered cumulatively with the recent development to the south, it would be akin to a small village extension, resulting in unacceptable urbanisation of a rural area. Though not a requirement of a PIP application, this was supported by an indicative site plan showing 4 dwellings situated in a frontage arrangement on Hassock Hill Drove, with 5 smaller dwellings set behind in a small estate style. The site plan indicates a shared access via a single access from the public highway, leading to shared driveways and parking areas with garden spaces shown as well. As set down in the Permission in Principle Order 2017 and Brownfield Land Register, the scope of PIPs is purely to look at location, land use and quantum, with other matters reserved. So no material weight can be given to the indicative plan you see here. It's merely the quantum of 9 you are considering in this location. The current local plan does not rely on defined settlement boundaries, but actually looks at a physical assessment of the site to consider whether it is within or outside of a settlement. The transition from countryside to village is clearly marked by the built form that fronts High Road, in Gorefield, and that includes the recently approved 5 dwellings on the corner of High Road and Hassock Hill Drove that can be just seen in the background of photo 2. As you round the corner, however, into Hassock Hill Drove, development becomes much more sporadic with significant areas of open agricultural land, as can be seen from the photographs as shown. It's considered that the development of this site with 9 dwellings would consolidate the built form on this corner to a scale and extent that the character in the area will be unacceptably eroded beyond the core shape of the village along High Road and progress the built form into the open countryside, contrary to local policy. Again, this area is in flood zone 3 and therefore requires a sequential test on the basis of a district-wide search on its elsewhere location. However, the application did not include an appropriate sequential test as it concentrated the area of search as Gorefield only. And again, sites that had previous planning approval were discounted on the basis of quantum and or design, which are not relevant to PIP applications. And therefore, the sequential test for this application was also considered failed. And on those basis, similar to all the others, character and flood risk, we recommend refusal of this application. Thank you.
Thank you once again. We have 2 speakers on this application. Firstly, I'd like to invite Parish Councillor Lorena Hodson from Gorefield Parish Council to make her presentation to the committee. Take your time, you've got 5 minutes when you're able to feel ready to start.
There we go. Thank you very much. So, as you say, my name's Lorena Hodgson. I'm the chair of Gorefield Parish Council. We represent all the villagers, obviously. Many of our councillors are many years resident. I've been there for 25 years myself. Others have been there for a lifetime. The Parish Council support the officers in refusal, as per the executive summary and as you've just heard, relating to location, land and the amount of dwellings. The location is in the open countryside. It's a 60-mile-per-hour road, Hassock Hill Drove. It was a horse field for at least the last 25 years since I've known it, with flooding in that particular end. In particular, there's always a big pool there. And it is outside the local plan, Fenland District Council's own local plan. It is in the highest flood level. I probably should stop talking about flood levels. I appreciate what you've said earlier. About the flood zones, but as you'll also see, Anglian Water have talked about sewage, they've talked about surface water, obviously that relates to flood zone, it needs to go somewhere. As I heard earlier from gentlemen there about sewage, about how it would be dealt with your own individual sewage, like I've got one myself, that does mean multiple tractors. If you've got 9 houses, well 15 houses if you count, 14 houses if you count the ones that are already there, that is a lot of tractors coming to collect a lot of sewage. So while I appreciate that may seem like it'll be okay, but it's you need to be at least a year. And these houses are going to have small. I've got an old house, great big pit in the ground. These will be over it at least a year each year, if not more often. The supporters for it, the reason it's here is because of the letters of support. They reference improve the street scene, infill, vitality, viability, local economy. None of those, if you look at number 9.4, there's no previous improvement when that has been brought up in the past. So those who are supporting it are not supporting it with any planning consideration, as referenced earlier. The local plan is a small village. Threshold has already been breached. It's gone from 33, it should have had, to 85 already, further into the village. Nearby, obviously, with, as I say, the 5 that are being built now. They're already causing problems. They're large houses. The access is already a problem, the speed of cars, etc. But that went ahead last year now, of course, and we objected for the same reasons as today, and we're disappointed with unfortunately, with your decision last year, because we have seen that the problems that we had have now come true. The problems we objected to have now come true. It will be a total of 14. You're looking at 9, but it's already with the others there.
The sequential test that we've just referred to in the previous one, it should be district-wide, it's not. And again, I think that obviously makes a difference. There's plenty of other places that can be built. I thought was interesting, the 18 dwellings per hectare is what this amounts to. And locally, it's 3.2 one side of the road and 8 to the other. So again, density, which is part of the consideration for PIPs. Considering what you said earlier, things like about within the Chatteris sign, the Gorefield sign earlier, or this last year, has now been moved. One of the builders of the 5 houses has moved it, but it was right at the edge of the village with a factory opposite. This isn't the village, this is only a factory opposite. The highways issues to do with speed, the view of these people all coming out onto that road is bouncy. It's just, you won't be able to see to the left, you won't be able to see easily to the right already. It's going to be very difficult at that cross. It's a crossroads, not a simple junction like some of the others. Interestingly, the representations that have been made by the gentleman who's going to pop over again now, I'm sure, Councillor Murphy mentioning things that you did earlier, earlier issues you had, you refused a planning permission with less issues than we have now. So hopefully you will refuse this one. As a local member of the council, and obviously living there for 25 years with my family, we support refusal. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Now I'd like to put questions, clarifications to Councillor Hodson, members. Any questions before we let Mrs. Hodson go? No, thank you very much for that. Members, questions, clarifications to officers? Oh, sorry, we've got another speaker. Silly me. Yeah. Now I'd like to invite Matthew Hall, he's the agent. Sorry, Matthew. I nearly forgot you there, didn't I? And shouldn't. You're our resident now, aren't you?
Thank you. Thank you. So this site has been in the applicant's family for over 50 years, which it also used to include 167 High Road, which was sold a while ago. It's not been used for agricultural land, as the lady said before me, for over 20 years. It's not been used for any crop planting. That's the map that we submitted on the screen. Obviously, the site is hatched in red. So we would consider this as part of Gorefield. Could you consider it infill? Policy LP12, there's properties all at the front that aren't shown on that map that were approved. Policy LP16D makes a positive contribution to the area. The site to the south was given planning approval by this committee and works have commenced on those. All those plots have been sold. One of those properties is built out, some of the others getting built. They were approved in 2023 in flood zone 3. They've been sold. People are buying them. People want to live there. We've reviewed the highway comments with the applicant. The applicant is fully aware that a speed survey would need to be done for the site. Highways consultant engaged. Possible reduction in the speed limit. To be clear, yes, it was an indicative arrangement we've submitted, which Danielle kindly showed on the screen, but that layout does show members what might be allowed on this site if this is approved. We've got more than adequate access within the site for a bin lorry, parking, turning, fire engine, exit in a forward gear within the site. That just gives members an idea of what could be achieved. One of the reasons for refusal is overdevelopment. The indicative proposal we've submitted for 9 dwellings clearly shows that all those properties would have much more than a third garden area, adequate parking, mixture of properties. I know it's indicative, but it just gives members an idea. On an earlier application, Hospital Road, Doddington this afternoon, one of the reasons was inefficient use of land. Here it's overdevelopment. There was a time a long while ago where it was 30 dwellings per hectare. This is obviously a lot less. Looking at the map on the screen that we submitted, you can see there, this site in red, look all to the east, to the south, property to the north. There's a lot of properties right next to this site. You can see for yourself on the Google map. And directly to the south, the site I was talking about that was approved in 2023, site's all sold. People have brought it. People are building. I think one of the houses is near enough finished. So it's up to members to determine if they think this is part of the built-up form of Gorefield. You could see there, you know, okay, if we were to the west of Hassock Hill Road, that's open Fenland. I understand that. But even to the south here, there's dwellings, there's lots of farm buildings and factory buildings, and obviously dwellings all continuous to the east. During the application, the applicant was proactive, and he provided us with an email which we sent to the officer, which was from, and I'll just read it out because I think it's in the pack, from Jonathan Lewis, Chief Executive Officer, Diamond Learning Partnership Trust. I'll just read it, it's 2 paragraphs. The heads have forwarded me your latest email and asked me to respond. You'll understand this is a tricky situation for us to work in, so I think the planning application and any support for the school need to be separated. However, if it's helpful, I thought it might be sensible to point you towards the document below on the County Council's website that shows in the future we are likely to have a falling pupil roll, and therefore growth in the area would help ensure we can continue to provide the high quality education we want for the community. You can open the document, etc. The building is in a poor state of repair through age, not neglect, and some much needed investment required. That's what the applicant obtained from Jonathan Lewis, Chief Executive of the Diamond Learning Partnership. I think I submitted a second slide, please, with a table on. Thank you. No, that's fair enough. So the table, this is from the County Council's website that we were provided with by the applicant, obviously Jonathan Lewis, and it shows, I'll be brief, 2024 to 2025, total school 100 for Gorefield Primary School, then numbers down to 2029 to 2030 fall from 100 to 84. This is off the County Council's website, it's not me. But in the small print, I appreciate you can't read that, it says, major changes in future house building will also affect intake and cohort changes. That's what it says on the County Council website. There's an opportunity here that a development like this with a mixture of homes could support this school. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, questions for Mr. Hall? And Councillor French has one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. This is a PIP again. 9 dwellings. You don't have to, if this application was approved, you don't have to supply any section 106. So I'll listen to what you're saying about the school, and having been a county councillor for several years, I won't comment on that, but I'm not quite sure whether these figures are correct. Speed reduction, yeah, that badly needed. Can you tell me, we did go out and look on site, the 2 houses that are at the top, are they part of the ownership of this site, or did they get planning permission and it's a separate applicant?
I think you refer to the properties all at the just below the red line, the south. Is that? Yes, that was owned by this applicant, and he sold all those plots off. So he did used to own those 5, and he has sold all of them off. Yes, so it was the same owner. Yes.
I think I've got a question to ask to the officers, because it was his whole site, which then makes that 11, which is then subject to section 106. Thank you.
Yes, I think that's a pertinent question. We'll just ask any other, before we start, any more questions from Mr. Hall before we go, then we'll bring officers, and I'm sure that question you'd love to ask that. Any more questions for Mr. Hall? You have, Councillor Benny, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Is the applicant going to give anything to the school to help for the poor state of repair from it?
I'm allowed to answer that. Well, yeah. Okay.
That's a question for you.
The applicant himself spoke to the school, and obviously Jonathan Lewis, Chief Executive Officer, has responded. It has been talked about speed reduction, as Councillor French said. Total of 5. If this gets past 9, if it's 9, that's 14. We would be into affordable housing, so that would have to get looked at. Section 106. Contributions. If the total is 9 plus 5, 14, there'd obviously be contributions, which he would be happy, I'll have to speak for him, happy for that to go to the school, yes. And if we got into that, it would have to be an amount agreed with officers, yes.
Okay. Does that satisfy you at all? Yeah, Councillor Benny. So any more questions before we let Mr Hall go? And then we can get Councillor French to ask her pertinent questions to officers. Thank you very much. The floor is yours, Councillor French.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, Mr Hall has actually upped that slightly. I thought it was 11, it's now 14. So it is now subject to Section 106 and affordable housing. Is that correct?
Well, officers.
Oh, it's good to have a proper planning legal question every now and then. It's an interesting question. So things with PIPs and planning legislation generally. I'll take quite a high level approach at first. Is that obviously if it's seen that an applicant has intentionally split a site to avoid financial contributions, we can either refuse it, or seek additional contribution. Obviously, this being a PIP, you won't be able to seek additional contribution because there is no legal mechanism to do that. There is case law on this, and I can't remember the exact title. Sorry to let you down. I'm not expecting to have to discuss it at nearly 5 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon. And it looks at matters such as ownership. Could it be one development? And there is a third test, which I can't. Was it one planning unit? I think it is, and how. So it's more complex of going. A landowner owns a field, and then has another one that they should be completely ignored. There's a requirement to actually look at this in the whole way and do a planning balance. I'll be honest, I don't have information in front of me to be able to give you a formal. Any comment that I feel comfortable, appropriate would be to give advice to a committee member. If members are concerned about this, I would advise that the best thing we can do is defer it on this one item and to bring back a supplementary report that would just literally lay out the case law, look into this point and give you some information, because the information on this within at the moment now is not for me to directly have to feel comfortable to respond to you appropriately, and I don't like to give information to members that I don't think is correct or don't know comfortable enough. Thank you, Chairman.
Want to come back before bring Councillor Benny in?
Yes, please. I'm just thinking back to 1 o'clock, just after 1 o'clock, when we discussed Berryfield, 15 additional dwellings, not one penny towards any kind of affordable home or 106. So it just seems there's a policy for one application, there's another policy for another one. Our own policies are contradicting each other.
I'm not sure.
So I would say that they're not contradicting each other. Our policy acknowledges when a scheme is not viable and it's evidenced and it's then independently reviewed, that, and the MPP accepts this, there may be times that we might not seek contributions. We've discussed this at length before, so I won't go over it again, but we are trying to work with statutory consultees to have a better understanding of the harm that has happened from this ongoing shortfall in contributions. Obviously, Poole Council has now agreed to move forward on a new local plan, and part of that will be looking to bring forward an IDP and all those things. So they'll give us a lot more information. Well, actually, will be infinitely more helpful for us to advise officers and come to recommendations on viability, and if there is a viability issue, if that results in harm. But what I would suggest is that was the application because there was a viability. There is no viability in front of us because we haven't looked at this matter for this point. So I wouldn't say that it's policies pulling in different directions or anything. I'd just say that it's just different matters for different applications. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, if I can just come back, yes, we did agree in December that we will scrap the local plan we're doing now and start a fresh new one. So we're not going to have a new local plan till at least 27, 28. So I don't think it's going to resolve the applications that are coming in.
Just clarity, the IDP will, because that will give us evidence. That's the evidence base is what we need. And as soon as we've got up to date, hopefully any application coming in will be able to be a lot stricter, and because the evidence based on the new local plan is still a material consideration. But we'll watch and see. Let's leave it at that. Should we agree to that, Chancellor French?
If I can just come back here, Mr. Chairman, we have always been informed that the emerging local plan carries no weight. So, I mean, we've now scrapped that one. So I'm not convinced what you've just said, Matthew, that, you know, this will happen quickly. It's not going to happen quickly. We started the new local plan, I believe, in 2019. We're now 6 years down the line, and we're no further forward, and we can't give any weight to the plan that we have now just scrapped.
Absolutely right. We've been told that many times on this planning committee that that's absolutely the case. So I'm like you. I'm not going to hold my breath on this. More questions to officers, I think. Oh, sorry, Councillor Benny. Thank you.
Yeah. Can you do a 106 agreement on a PIP?
No.
So that's why there's no 106 agreement on here. But if it came back in as a full application, then if you felt then with the information you'd have and with a full application, you would then be able to assess whether there is any 106 contributions from that. And also, we've got a live document within the council that says more or less that north of the 47, we don't pay any contributions.
That document is no longer. That was an evidence base for the previous plans. Yeah. So the point is that, like we were saying earlier, evidence bases for the new local plan are a material consideration. They are not, though. They're not policies. We can't give them policies, but the evidence that comes forward. So if we do a new housing needs assessment, the evidence is all of a sudden we need 4-bed houses or we need 1-bed houses or whatever. Policy will, which we have, says we'll try to deliver housing that the district needs. Therefore, a new housing needs assessment would help us change the housing mix we were looking for. Same with infrastructure delivery. If we suddenly get a lot of information that shows that certain areas have a unbelievably shortfall in education or NHS or whatever, and schemes in that area are not able to wash their own face in relation to contributions, it's much more likely we'll push back and look to refuse them because there's clear demonstrable harm. Where at the moment, the IDP, as Councillor Finch said, the local plan was actually commenced quite a long time ago, so that's relatively out of date itself. So a new one of them that will have us up to date will hopefully put us in a lot stronger position. But as you said, you can't put Section 106 on a PIP.
Unfortunately not. So, carry on.
Just so that it's clear. So with this application as a PIP, whether it's got 5 houses or 15 houses on it, it doesn't make any difference at this stage. So it's all a bit of a red herring that will be dealt with in a later application that follows on from this.
Through Chairman, no, there's a cap on the number of that you can have in a PIP, and that is inferred that it goes hand in hand with the guidance on NPPF in relation to majors because of that requirement. What this issue is about whether or not, arguably, have they intentionally split the site? Are they providing 2 different schemes, is what Councillor Finch has asked. That is something that could be a reason to recommend refusal on a PIP, because if you think that actually the site could accommodate more, or that they've brought forward 2 schemes that separate, rather, so let's say you should have a scheme of 15, 20, whatever, and you've come forward with 3 lots. Scheme of 21, they come forward with 3 lots of 7. Then that should form a reason for refusal. Or you would seek contributions on the 3rd scheme or the 2nd scheme where there's a set of teeth needed. But obviously, because this is a PIP, we can't do this. So if members accept this is as 9 and don't look any deeper, then that's the end of the conversation. If members recommend approve, if go against office recommendation, approve that. Obviously, Councillor Finch has raised an issue that hasn't formed a consideration, and I'm not comfortable in really going into too much detail on the specifics of this application because the information isn't before us as a committee. And I like to talk, but I at least like to have some basis of what I'm saying. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, I think we've clarified that somewhat. Councillor Marks.
Headspin again. Okay, so the gentleman has sold some plots. It may be 2 years ago, 3 years ago, money as he's gone. But at the minute, we've always been told it's what we've got in front of us. And it's not what has happened historically, and it's not what could happen in the future. We have been told that we should just look at what is in front of us today. Yeah.
Do you, Chairman? To some extent, yeah, but as saying, there's case law in relation to certain matters that mean that that isn't the case. You know, as I said, there is case law that says if you split a site consciously, then that should be read as one site. You know, irrespective of whether you've come up one in front of you, or two in front of you, or three in front of you. But as I said, this is a question that Councillor French has raised. I haven't got the information, so I'm struggling to answer specifics on this case because we don't have the information. But I don't know if do you want to provide anything?
Well, I think site aggregation, I mean, it's a known issue, a known problem amongst planning authorities. I haven't looked into this in detail either. And I think if members are concerned that that's what's happened here, then this should be deferred so officers can give proper advice when it's reconsidered.
I'm going to give you one more chance, Councillor Marks, and we've got to move on now. So we're going
I'm
to
sorry,
be till 6.
we are here to look at application today. Okay, if it's felt that there is some skullduggery gone on behind the scenes previously, I did. Hey, I can be quoted in the paper. If it is felt there's some skullduggery gone on previously, then surely that is for FDC legal and planning to look at. We are lay people in this. We are just looking today at today's application, and I think we should just go forward on today's application.
More, Councillor French.
Thank you. Yeah, I did go and look at the site on Sunday. If I hadn't gone out, I would, looking at what we've seen today and reading this, I would definitely agree to go with officers' recommendations to refuse. But the houses that have been built along that corner, and there's at the front, there's two being finished off now, and you go round the corner, and the other side's there for the 9. That will finish off that part of the village. And next to that, there's another dwelling. So you could actually class it as an infill. Oh, sorry, I thought we meant to.
Certainly not that lucky, Councillor French. It's still questions to officers. Just hold that one back for the
officers
debate.
can't answer the question, so I think we move on.
Yeah, let's move on, please. We're here till 6, and I should have my Weetabix. Anyway, right. No more questions to officers. Now we'll go into debate. Invite members to debate the item in respect to material considerations. Did you want to bring this into the debate, Councillor French?
I've just done it.
Yeah, but it's okay. Well, my head's spinning. Okay, so anybody else want to continue the debate while I get fairly well straight? Okay, Councillor Marks.
I think we've got bogged down a bit about historic with the site. It's whether today we feel that what is proposed in front of us is acceptable or not. Yeah, the site, there has been some property sold off previously, but that with more houses will probably enhance. We've seen reports from the school, which is makes interesting reading, so again, we've got local facilities that need supporting with that. So at the moment, I'm minded to go not for a refusal, but to go with grant.
Councillor Benny.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I mean, Councillor French went out there Sunday. I mean, I was in support of the other houses. When we got there, I was really surprised how nice they look. I know they're not finished, and you can't ever tell till it's finished. But we always say, or I always say, and the committee usually goes on, that, nice houses on the entrance to a village sets the scene for how the village is. Those houses that are being built there look really, really nice, and I'm sure when they're finished, they will be. Gorefield has some lovely houses in it. We had a ride through. There's a bit of fly tipping going on, Councillor French, that really ought to be addressed. But there's nice houses, and I always think nice houses bring nice people. And looking at this, for the development behind it, I agree with Councillor Marks. This is the application that's in front of us. We can't look at 106 agreements because it's not tied to a PIP. And I would like to see it if it comes back in a later application where we do have speed reductions put in there. I think that is only right. But truly, this is about land usage. You've got houses behind it. You've got a factory. opposite the ones that the other ones were built in front of. And yeah, it seems that sometimes people don't want things in a village. I remember when we had my very first planning meeting, we had a application in Wisbech St Mary's, and there were some one-bedroom flats, and somebody came and spoke from the parish council and said, we don't want any one-bedroom flats because we haven't got any there. Well, just because you haven't got any doesn't mean you don't need them, and they were built, and I bet there's somebody living in them. So that argument doesn't stack up for me. So looking at this, I think we've got houses here, 9, entrance to the village, nice places, and more importantly than anything, the community benefit of this is looking at the school numbers. You know, that school needs support. We talked about Turbs earlier today. What happens to village is it lost its pub because it hasn't got a pub because there's not enough people, and the numbers are projected to fall at the school. And the only way you're going to pull that round is to build houses and bring people here. And when you get to the point, I mean, Newton is struggling with its school numbers. I know Councillor Clark told me about that. And you know, we want to retain these they're a major part of any development in any town or village. You start getting to Christchurch is another one where the school numbers are down. And if you don't put houses there, you end up, when your schools close, all the kids in the village will end up being bussed off to somewhere else like Wisbech or wherever it is. And really, we should be supporting the school. These housing numbers, that is massive community benefit for the whole village. In fact, the whole area.
Yeah, for mine, I don't disagree with anything you said, Councillor Benny. You know, I'm quite in support of this. Really, to be fair, I'm happy to listen to what anybody else says. But you know, I for one is in support of this PIP application. Anybody else at all? We're still in debate. Let me remind you.
I mean, the first applicant said that it's been overdeveloped, or there's been more development. It was earmarked for 33, and it's got 85, and we've still got falling school numbers. You know, that doesn't tie up with the maths that are there, and you know, the school is a major part. Once you lose a school, you'll never get it back. I mean, you're a county councillor, so are you, David, and you know the pressures that are on schools, and to keep, it says in the letter, to keep the high standard of education. I think the people of Gorefield deserve this to keep this going.
You start bussing people in, it's never the same as just walking to school or cycling to school with your mum and dad or whoever, is it? So yeah, I'm for this. I was in for Turves. I like to see villages grow and keep the pub open. If it's got one, the shop open, it's all good. And it's something that Turves hasn't got any of. They haven't got a shop and they haven't got a pub now either. And that is because the village didn't grow in the proper way. So as I said before, I'm in favour of this. But there we are. I'm going to end this debate now. I think we've gone round in circles. Thank you. Officers. Right. No officers, I'm going to say. So I'm looking for, do I have a proposal to go with officer recommendation to refuse planning permission for this application? To refuse it, to be clear. No. So I'm looking for another proposal. Councillor French, and the reasons, of course.
Yeah, I recommend we approve this application. The refusal recommendations, the community benefit of trying to keep this school outweighs any objection.
Also a speed reduction as well.
You can't do it under a PIP.
No, but they've said that that's what probably going to be done, and that would be a benefit, wouldn't it, to the community, wouldn't it?
But we can't do it under a PIP.
We can't, but
also, the chairman also says, Councillor Finch's suggestion is that there's material considerations that weigh in favour of it. This is a PIP. It has to be looked at just on land use, whether it's acceptable or not. And
yeah, I know we can't, but
no,
further down the line, if it's approved, further down the line, when it goes for outline reserve matters or whatever, that needs to be brought in. It is a community benefit keeping a school open.
But that's the reason for supporting it. That shouldn't be on a PIP, if you see what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the map up there, this is infill. It's within Hassett Grove, which is a defining boundary line on that map, that picture up there. So therefore, if you accept that's a boundary line, then it's not in the open countryside, it's within the village of Orfield. When it comes to flood zone 3, the community benefit of the school by far outweighs that, because the mitigation measures mean it will not be unsafe in any way. It says the principle of the residential development on this site were accepted in terms of location, up to 9. It's overdevelopment, it's not overdevelopment. It's good use of land. I mean, at Doddington, which we had earlier, but that first one was refused because it was underdevelopment of land. You know, where does the balance sit? So truly, I think this is a good, solid application and should be supported.
Okay, that's fine. So we'll move quickly on. So I've got the proposal. I'm happy with all those reasons from Councillor French and Councillor Benny. I'm happy with that. It's a good use of land. So I've got a proposal from Councillor French to go against officer's recommendation to approve this, seconded by Councillor Benny. Can I have a show of hands of that, please?
It's a unanimous decision, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Concludes today's planning meeting here at Fenland, and it's 10 to 5 basically. So thank you very much. It's been a good debate. Thank you very much, everybody.